Alrighty, everybody, welcome to multi-story operations for the smallest apartment. I basically built this class because it's a low frequency, high risk, and there's not a lot of training that's put out. There's high-rise classes and stuff to take, but there's really not anything geared for the smaller building, for the smaller department. You know, we don't have any high-rises. A little bit about me, everyone pretty much knows me, so we'll skip that. Exit locations, the windows. Tornado shelters across the street. Restrooms is down there. Coffee is actually going. And break times is to be every 45 minutes or so. There's some built-in breaks, but we'll kind of play it by ear kind of thing. Here's the objectives. You guys have those in front of you for the ones that have books. Target audience, all members operating in suppression activities for multi-story buildings. Prerequisites, basically firefighter 1 and then all the NIMS classes. At least the basic NIM classes. Here's the table of contents. You guys also have that in your books. First objection, or the first objective. With any given structure, the student shall identify basic principles of a multi-story building 100% of the time. Everyone gets kind of freaked out about the 100% of the time kind of thing. You guys can make that decision on what's a multi-story building. So in FBA 101, life safety code, any building that's over 23 meters high or 75 feet. So what's 75 feet, guys? Tell me that in stories. What's a general rule for a story?
7 stories.
Do what?
7 stories.
7 stories. Usually 10 to 12 feet per each story gives you the 7 stories or 75 feet. As you can see, there's some cool stuff. There's some pictures, so we all like pictures. This is a small department definition. Any building taller than the available ground ladder or aerial ladder or pre-connected hose lines will not be long enough to reach the fire floor. Too time intensive to extend due to life hazard and involvement, or the building is too large or open. Okay, everyone gonna agree with that? So deals with us, right? We have buildings that are 3 to 4 stories, and our pre-connects will not reach all of those areas because of stairs, distance from the road, and although now we have an aerial ladder, at the time when we didn't have an aerial ladder, it maxed out all of our ground ladders at 24 feet. So, discussion. What's the tallest building in our response area? Anybody?
The township and New Senior.
New Senior.
Yeah.
Soon to be the 4-story that's going to be across the street. But yes, that is the tallest building that we have in our district. 3 stories. What's the building construction of them? Of that building? Do what? It's type 5 construction. Do we have any fire or building codes for those buildings? Yes, we do. We do have county building codes, and they also do fire code evaluation. They are very basic fire code. So like this. This is a 3-story wood frame. Pretty common of what's in our area, or what we would go to in our Auto 8 response area as well. Just Springfield, Nixa, Republic has some 3 stories, I think. Going into chapter 2. Objectives. With the given structure, students must recognize various types of buildings, issues with fire behavior, and life safety concerns 100% of the time. We're going to be going over old style, new style, type 1 or type 2, type 5, and then compartmentalized fires. So type 1, this is like old school, like Empire State buildings. Okay, so pyramid shape. You remember how like the Empire State Building kind of goes up in tiers? That's pyramid style. They go up. Basically, the biggest part of that was all the structural columns are what add the weight, go up. So the bigger foundation you have, the more height you get out of the top of your building. So that's why they're like that. New style. So this would be more like World Trade Center, where it's steel beams on the outside and all inside is open. So skeletal steel with center core with shafts. So that's where all the air ducts, HVAC go up and down, elevators, stairwells, those things. Those are all in the very center with everything wrapped around them, all being open space for offices, living spaces, all that kind of stuff. Not really anything that we're gonna see, but gives you some basic idea of how buildings are made up. So here you go, pyramid style. And new style. This is actually World Trade Center as they were building it. That's no longer there. So you can see how all the inner shafts around open space, and then the structural steel or skeleton on the outside, providing strength for the entire building. Type 2, or lightweight. This is more like what we're gonna see, especially in like Springfield going to auto aids there. Structural steel that's unprotected. What makes it unprotected? Why is it unprotected?
Doesn't have a fire protection code.
There's no fire protection. Like World Trade Center Type 1, there was fire protection around each of the buildings, so it'll last longer during fire, under fire impingement, direct fire impingement. These don't have anything, so that's why they fail easy. So these are going to be like our strip malls that we see. Station 4's got, in the auto aid area over there behind Battery Outfitters, has that 4-story that's back there that's wood frame, but there's structural steel in the center of it to make open spaces. So that's mixed in with Type 5 construction. And then of course what we have, like what we've already discussed, the Type 5 construction that's in our area. Most apartment complexes are Type 5. The new 3-story is going to be Type 5, or is all Type 5 with some sprinkler systems, but it's pretty much all gusset plates and engineering I-beams and all that stuff that does not last long under direct flame impingement. As well as the new 4-story that's going up will be all Type 5 construction, all wood frame. HVAC is pretty important, just because they like to add a lot of the HVAC down onto the roofs. So you've got that added weight on the roof, but it looks like a normal pitched roof, but behind it it's just a facade. It's all hidden. So you have the extra added weight back there. Also, with HVAC, that we have to worry about is the solar panels. Those solar panels on those roofs are going to add extra weight to that building, or add extra weight to those roof members. Compartmentalized. So this is interior buildings that are sectioned off into rooms that basically help slow the fire down. So we have a bunch of little rooms inside a house, or a bunch of little rooms inside the apartment complexes. Those are all little compartmental rooms, all shaker out. Those are all compartmentalized, so we can close a door and slow fire spread. So you can compartmentalize the fire. Closing the door to the room will help buy some short amount of time to get the hose line in place, complete searches, evacuate the rest of the members, or evacuate the rest of the victims or people in that building. So compartmentalization is important. Life safety and fire protection. Fire rated doors. So even though it's Type 2, it's still rated for about 1 or 2 hours. Most of the time it's 2 hours. So those doors are rated, the walls are rated for 2-hour minimum. So yes, there's no technical, Type 5, there's no actual protectant around each structural member or the wood. It is protected by drywall and that kind of things. The doors are also rated, have closers, that kind of thing, to keep the doors closed. And as well as the doors are rated for 2-hour minimum so that fire can't breach the door. Open stairwells and open breezeways can be protected by dry or wet sprinkler systems, depends on how cold it is. There's some sprinkler heads, or there's some sprinklers, on Lakeview over in Ford's area that have sprinkler systems protecting the stairwells or the breezeways. That's just for occupant evacuation, that's all that's for, is to protect those, the decks or the open stairwells from being, attacked by fire or being in direct flame impingement and falling and then people not being able to exit. Closed stairwells, we now have that with the new, apartment complex, the new 3-story apartment complex. There's closed stairwells with fire rated doors. So those are designed for closers so that fire can't ever reach the exit area or the escape area for the occupants. So this is a 4-story. This is 4-story, type 5. This is what we see all the time. This is, or actually it's 5-story. So this is pretty much the max for type 5 construction. They can go a little bit taller, but most of the time you'll see right around 4 to 5, 3 to 5 is a max for type 5 buildings. Watch some movies. Nice. Hey, Burr, would you click that? You still on?
Top one.
Yep. So I'm sure everyone's seen this. This is pretty. This was in the news. Hopefully it goes to it. Maybe. And we get to watch a lovely infomercial. So typical type 5, high wind, high winds, and under construction. So that means all the structural members are out and open. There's nothing to protect them. There's nothing to slow fire spread. So you can see where the fire is just bouncing off of all the rafters and that roof. And they do a good job with getting the ladder set up pretty quickly. I think this is a 4-story.
He won't paint it, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 4 stories.
It would have to be, because I think that guy would.
Yeah, he
If it was
does.
TV, would you go for it if it was 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been doing that all the way down.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
He does, he hops. I'm pretty sure he hops. I'm glad the volume doesn't work because the commentary from these people on the camera phone is just,
Just a little crawl across.
yeah.
Some way.
So good save. Right before it collapses. It had been burning for some time, but unprotected structural members go pretty quick, especially with that amount of fire. Burr, would you click on that one, please? And, click on the next one.
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, actually, like this one. row home, basically what that is, 5-story row home. What kind of building construction could you see? Anybody?
Balloon. I'm gonna assume
Probably
type
not balloon.
I'm gonna assume type 5, but some of those old ones might be like type 3. With brick.
It's type 3. The structural walls are going to be brick, and then all the wood, all the levels, or all the floors are going to be notched into that wood, or notched into that brick. So you can see the walls in between are brick, so it's going to be type 3. Okay, click out of that one. So what's building construction?
Type 5.
Type 5.
3
Fire on the porch, that can happen very easily with people burning illegally with barbecue pits. Sometimes the porches are sprinklered, sometimes they're not. So just think if that was on the floor below, what it would be doing. It'd be lapping straight up and going to the next. And you can see the progression. It's moving right through the attic because it went through the eaves. And now it's working its way down the entire roof line. Kind of see a nice little flash there, probably maybe from a propane tank sitting there blowing on the porch. They got good access though.
Yeah,
There's no cars in the parking lot.
One car. Unheard of.
What else? What else is important? See the one doorway? Where's the laser? No, it doesn't work on the TV. So enclosed stairwells, there's no breezeways. So pre-connected hose lines, you have to take times with going through opening closing doors, going up stairwells, or you take an extended pack or high-rise pack. And it's breached to the peak, so it's working its way. We're not gonna watch this whole thing, Bert, you wanna click out of that and go to the next one? And you see how important it is, especially for us, because we may be able to see smoke, but are you calling for a second alarm quickly? Because we're just getting the first alarm for this. We don't get a different alarm style. We're getting the same trucks as we do on any other house fire. So you get to see it. There's bystanders throwing ground ladders. The cops are here, so everyone's safe. Building construction.
Like type 5.
Type 5, I would agree. What else is important?
Open stairways.
Open breezeways,
Yeah, that's common around here.
which is correct. It's common around here.
At least it's only 2 stories.
What's the next problem?
Towers.
looks like the stairwell itself is
Yeah.
on fire.
Yeah. That's not good. There is one good thing, there is one saving grace. What's the stairs made out of?
Concrete and metal.
Yeah.
Concrete metal, so they're gonna stand up a little longer. This is an easy, quick job for a pre-connected hose line. I would agree with that operation. I would definitely agree with knocking that down from down below before going up. You can see the stairwell held up pretty good. They're doing searches. I would say probably fire started on the porch and extended into the attic. Maybe a sprinkler system? Maybe a sprinkler system? Still a lot of fire though for a sprinkler system, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it was all up above it.
Yeah. I think they found a doggy.
They found her baby.
They found her doggy. Okay, Bird. Alright. So discussion. What's the difference between new and old? This is back to type 1.
Old is pyramid style too.
It's pyramid style, and new is what?
Can be whatever.
Yep.
Skeletal steel.
Skeletal steel on the outside. Most common in small towns and suburbs is what?
Type 5s.
Type 5s. Because it's cheap and easy to build. What usually causes fire to spread?
Void areas.
Open spaces, no fire stops, that kind of thing.
Weather.
Weather, wind-driven fires we saw in the first video. Wind helped a lot with that one, as well as unprotected structural members. Okay. What does compartmentalized stand for? Compartments. The building construction is built around small rooms, and there's multiple small rooms to compartmentalize the building. Okay, we're to our first break.
Nice.
Take 10 minutes. Sounds great. Be back at 4:35.
Dude, I want one of those old jazzy scooters there.
Take 10 to 15 minutes.
That brings us to-
Did I say that? Did I say that?
They go out and check the gas meter, make sure it was off, so we thought that crank on.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they would have done
Well,
that. What kind of day you having?
yeah. It's a good day. Don't forget the cameras on, guys.
There's a question about.
Oh, we wouldn't do anything.
I thought they were showing a giant open call, you know, open spaces to the out. I just had back in. I decided it wasn't worth it.
What year's that truck?
17.
It's pretty damn nice.
Thank you.
Did you decide to spend the wedding money on it?
Nope. No, Bailey actually talked me into it, so.
Yours or hers?
It's mine. She talked me into getting it. I wasn't gonna screw with it, but she talked me into it, so. We had, gone out and looked at some trucks. Or well, so like 2 weeks ago I mentioned to her, I'm like, interest rates are good right now. I'm like, now would be a good time to get into a truck for me.
Did you get a 0% with that Chevy?
What's that?
Did you get 0% with that Chevy?
No, that's only on new. And talking with them, the 0%, they're like, you oftentimes end up getting a better deal, because if you do the 0% financing, it's for 84 months, and you lose all the discounts, all the rebates, all that, and whatever the MSRP is, that is what you are paying.
So you're almost better off taking the rebates.
Take the rebates and have a loan with interest. Yep. You're almost always better off doing that. I'm like, all right, whatever, works for me. I don't care. But yeah, I had mentioned something to her a couple weeks ago. And I was just like, hey, I would like to get into a truck while interest rates are good. And she's like, well, it's something to consider. I don't know if now's the time. I'll agree to that. And so Sunday, we were out driving around and we just happened to be driving by the Republic Ford dealership, and
Did you buy a truck?
she goes, she's like, let's pull in there and see if there's anything on the lot that's decent. I'm like, okay, so we kind of went and looked, and yeah, there's some decent ones. Found a couple of them on the new side on the Republic Ford lot, and a couple of them on the used side that I'm like, man, I'd be willing to look into these. If the numbers work, the numbers work. So went in there, really didn't find anything on the new side where the numbers were gonna work. Once we started talking, once I realized that you lose all those rebates for the 0%, I'm like, yeah, the numbers aren't gonna work. So there's a 2018 GMC Sierra SLT, which is basically the equivalent of the LTZ package on Chevy. So it had all the bells and whistles, nice truck. I'm talking with them, I'm like, oh, I'll take it for a test drive. So we went out and drove it, it rode nice. It was like, yeah, let's see if we can get the numbers to work on this, and if we can, then we'll buy it. Okay, so started talking with them, they were just being dicks. Yeah, which that's where Bailey bought hers from,
Yep.
and they were awesome. They were awesome whenever she bought hers.
I never had problems with them.
Yeah, no, neither had we.
It's the core one for that.
But,
was that
yeah,
problem.
but we went and dealt with Republic Ford, and the guy we were dealing with, he just wasn't, he's like, no, not gonna happen. He's like, you're not gonna get it to where you wanna be, I'm not even gonna waste my time on it. I'm like, okay, so we were there for a couple hours dealing with him, just because we looked at new also, and trying to see what we could do for new, and just, I wasn't having it, so finally I just looked at Bailey and I'm like, I'm done, we're leaving. So we left, went back to the house, and we were sitting around the house, she's like, well, let's just go look at some other dealerships today. Okay. So we drove around a couple in Springfield, didn't really see anything that we liked, so we went to, we went down to the Ozark Chevy dealer, holding the lot, we were looking, and there was a used one that I was like, yeah, I like that, and then there was one of the Trail Bosses, the 2020 F-150 Trail Boss, or Silverado Trail Bosses sitting on the lot, and that thing was beautiful. And red. It was red. It was red over black rims, black wheels. I mean, dude, it was a beautiful truck. Took it for a test drive. Rode well. Like, yeah, let's see if we can get the numbers to work on the one. Just see what happens. They were $50 more than what I was willing to spend a month. And they worked with me, like they were trying, they couldn't, the best they could do was $50 more a month than I was willing to spend. So I'm like, Alright, once you've already, you've already done a credit check, so let's look at that use side and see if there's anything over there, using credit check, whatever. I'll have to run my credit in, so, went over, and I'm like, I was looking at this one, he's like, okay, we got an egg, it just didn't, like, I just didn't like it. It was basically the exact same thing as the one that we had drove on the Republic Ford lot. I don't know, I just didn't like it, it didn't feel right.
Of course you would.
Went back and I'm like, no, I'm not really, I'm not liking that one. And the salesman's like, well, did you see this black one over here? I must have missed it.
But you've already had it
So I
before.
went over and looked at it.
I'm in the military, I had vaccines.
And it's like, he's like, 2017 has 32,000 miles.
Required
I'm
15
like,
shots.
okay, that's not bad for a 32,000 miles. They had just gotten it in Saturday, and this was Monday.
That's a quick bullet.
And I'm like, I'm looking at it, and I like it. So I do. So he's like, wanna take it for a drive? Yeah, I'll take it for a drive. Pull out, or he brings the key out and he's like, I'll warn you,
Yeah, it's
this
$95
doesn't
now.
have the stock engine, the stock 5.3 engine, it's got the 6.2 Corvette engine.
Yeah, I need to throw some money at it.
And I'm like,
Okay.
I got it on 65 and I freaking punched it. And it planted me in the seat. And I'm like, I was just giggling the entire time. Bailey's sitting over there like hanging on to everything. We're about to die. No. No, he just. At one point in time, I had the drops on their lot in my pocket. He had no idea that I still had.
What is a 45?
Like, literally, I went to leave and I just like handed over all the keys and he goes, I mean, I guess you wanna just come back later tonight and gotten a whole lot of new truck. Several new vehicles. But we sat down, I really liked the truck, I got the truck, so we sat down. It was $15 more than what I was wanting to spend, but I'm like, I'll come up with $15 a month. I will come up with $15 a month. So. It's nice, CLTZ, C71 off-road package, it's
The Exxon Mobil is 47.
I gotta figure out how to cancel out the governor though.
It's.
Because it's got the standard 98 mile an hour Chevy governor in it. And when it hits the governor, because I found out on the way home from Ash Grove last night, I hit some of those back farm roads.
Like taking a turn too hard, and the engine just falls on the grass and shuts down, I guess.
Yeah, no, like it just shuts down whenever you hit that governor. And so I wanna figure out where I can take it to get the governor to keep it out of it. Cause I wanna see what it'll really do.
How much they give for your Impala?
They paid it off. I broke even on it,
Now's the
which
time
was
to
a
do it.
surprise. I was not expecting to break even on it.
With the tweet.
I did.
With the tweet.
And right now, they're probably doing everything they can to sell vehicles.
Yeah.
At best. Anybody that's gonna pay interest rates. Anybody to pay interest rates.
For the most part.
It's not laid off so far, so she's off work until July.
Maybe down the road.
Well, looks like everybody's back, we'll start back.
Can't afford to do anything to it.
Alrighty, building systems. So to give instructors, students, or in structure, students shall explain various building systems that could affect operations 100% of the time. So life safety and fire protection systems. So this is your sprinkler systems, wet, dry, residential versus commercial. So residential, a lot of that is gonna be like PVC pipes and stuff that will melt through if fire touches it or direct flame impingement. And then you have metal, like what's in the stations, metal pipes. Most of the time, they're for victim egress, not necessarily for fire extinguishment. They're not designed to stop the fire, they're designed to allow for victims or people to escape or to slow the spread until the fire department can get there. Heat detectors, most of the time we find those in kitchens and stuff, but a lot of that can be in rate of rise detectors, We'll see that in, kitchen areas, we'll see it in, you can see it in, even in, breezeways or open stairwells, you'll see that. Smoke detecting systems, normal smoke detectors. You can also have FDCs. Now, we don't actually have any of these technically in our district, but they can be from 1.5 inches, which I'll show you the picture right there at the bottom. That's 1.5 inch connection right here. And not a normal 2.5 or 2.5s or 5 inch. So, I'm sorry, we do have FTCs, but we don't have, somebody give me assistance. Standpipes, we don't have standpipes in our district. So we do have these, but we don't have standpipes. And we have a mixture of 2.5 and 5 inch, soon hopefully be going to 5 inch connections on most of ours. The Lakewood apartments over there at Lakewood and Robertson, those have residential sprinkler systems in them, and the shutoff is actually in somebody's closet. So residential systems, there's some minor code for it, and can be kind of sketchy. So don't rely on them. That's why we bring all our tools and bring all of our stuff to those fires, because we don't know what we're getting into. Smoke removal, this is like for bigger buildings, high rises and stuff. You can actually use the HVACs or the air handlers to remove the smoke from each floor. And they'll actually shut them off, so they'll have fusible links in them, so it'll shut down those so fire can't spread between floors. They have little shutters that come down and block those so they don't spread fire. So this is a picture of that. So you can turn them on and off depending on which one you are and help exhaust the smoke. And use the elevator shafts or the stairwells to do that with as well. Standpipes, this is what we don't really see. You can have the class 1, which is 1.5 inch pipe and discharge. Most of the time this is, you'll see it's just this without the 2.5 connection. So most of the time it's just for occupant use. Most of the time those aren't used anymore. Those were like the old school because everybody wanted to be a fireman. So you'll see a lot of these in like the 70s and 80s buildings here, and sometimes even in the 90s. You'll see these where it's the connection that we want, but they've added 1.5 inch of hose into the compartment so that occupants can fight fire. But most of the time those get taken out pretty quickly. You'll see extinguishers in those as well, because they have all this space. They gotta put something inside it. And then class 3 is dual purpose, is like what's at the top. It's class 1 and class 2 put together. So, Burr, would you mind hitting that video? Maybe. So a drive system on the outside of the building, that's an add-on construction there. I wish we could. Can you do volume? That would probably be beneficial.
I could before a lightning strike, I don't know if I can now. I'm gonna go with no.
Okay.
I might have just lied to you.
These classes of standpipes are differentiated by their intended users. Class 1 systems are designed for fire department use only. They have 2.5 inch outlets, which preclude their use by any untrained occupants. Class 2 systems are designed to be used by the occupants to help suppress the fire until the fire department arrives. They are equipped with 1.5-inch hose and are limited to 100 GPM flow. They are not meant to be used by the fire department and are rarely tested. These systems are merely a first aid device, meant to buy time for the fire department to arrive. Class 2 systems will be easily overcome by large fires that require 400 to 500 GPM to contain. Some jurisdictions allow Class 3 standpipe systems to accommodate both users. Here, the standpipe has both 2.5-inch and 1.5-inch hose line connections, one for the fire department and the latter for occupant use. Many times there will be only one outlet though, equipped with the 2.5 to 1.5-inch reducer to serve both purposes. Let's examine the problems associated with Class 3 standpipes. They have to be located in the staircase to provide a safe area for the fire department to begin their attack. While standpipes for use by occupants should be located outside the staircase, so that an untrained occupant does not fill the staircase with smoke and heat by blocking the door open with a charged hose line. That door needs to be kept shut until the staircase can be cleared of civilians. It is extremely important to begin your attack from the nearest standpipe riser. Intelligence gathering is essential and can sometimes be as simple as asking fleeing occupants, "Where's the fire?" Even if we get this information early on, like there's a fire in apartment 5J on the 5th floor, things can appear very different when the attack team opens the door to the hall on the 5th floor and is met by a wall of black smoke and high heat. They can easily become disoriented. That is why knowing the general layout of the building and the floor plan can help your crews in finding their way. Most floors in an apartment building are laid out nearly identically because each floor needs the same plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and so on. For the fire in apartment 5J, the first due engine officer should examine the floor below the fire to locate apartment 4J and find the nearest staircase and standpipe. Then count the doors from that staircase to the door to apartment 4J. Then you can guide your men down the hall in the pitch black on the fire floor, counting doors as you feel your way along. This works better in apartment buildings than it does in office buildings, however, because many office buildings have different floor layouts for different tenants.
Okay, just click out of that bird.
I'm Ray McCormack, and we're gonna get down to the brass tacks and hard facts.
Yeah, Cormac. So this was something I found out pretty much with making the information for this class. So they actually make firefighter air replenishment systems. It's like a cascade system built with inside the building. So it's very similar to that little door over there. It's where I found it. And there's just a bottle system, and it's like a quick fill. You just plug it into the SCBA, and it equalizes the pressure within your bottle.
Is that code at certain places?
I'm guessing. It's completely new, and I just found
It is, it's
information.
code in, some of the bigger cities
Yeah.
have
I
adopted
think
code
this
for
was-
high rise or just large.
I think I found that in Colorado. So it's kind of neat, and each floor has one of those. So they can literally do quick bottle changes, like a couple floors below. You'd set up a rehab area, and you can actually fill bottles there, so you're not taking empty bottles up and down the stairs and out completely. You can literally just fill them from the staging area that's on the floor and not have to go completely out, because that takes manpower. So, layout. Discussion, difference between heat and smoke detectors, guys. What's the difference?
One detects heat, the other one detects smoke.
Correct. One detects the particles going across the eye. That's what sets it off. One is a rate of rise. It does a quick heat, or a quick amount of heat, and that's what sets off the detector. Who has standpipes, and what class are they? Who has standpipes? We don't have any standpipes, so. What size are the connections for your FTCs?
Around here, it seems to be two, 2.5.
Yep, it's a double Siamese, two 2.5s, and then we have a new 5-inch with the new lid. So. We just had a break, so no, you don't get one. Operations, gets into a little bit more in depth. Students will be able to identify operations and resources needed in multi-story buildings within 1 minute. So we're gonna go over fire behavior and spread, ventilation, fire attack, water supply, search and rescue, grid, and evacuation. Fire behavior. So this goes into a little bit more in bigger buildings. So the stack effect is defined as vertical and natural air movement throughout the high-rise building caused by the difference in the outside and inside air pressure, air temperatures. So if there's an HVAC system within inside the building, the air pressure and the temperature outside is going to be different from the air. They're going to be two different temperatures. So you can actually get like the tornado effect, like when we see on wildlands and that kind of stuff. It's actually the heat makes its own weather. Happens the same on the outside of a building or inside of a building. Makes the same thing. This is a little bit higher, especially once you get, let's say like 110 floors, like a World Trade Center. The temperature outside is actually cooler than what's temperature inside, and you also have lots of wind. So that adds to it. Positive and negative stack effect. This is more like for high-rise buildings, but could happen for us depending on how big the building is. Positive stack is the effect more prevalent in the winter months in cooler climates where the inside air temperature is warmer than the outside air temperatures. Opening made in low in the building will cause cold air to enter and displace warm air, smoke toxins to the roof. So, like we've seen this with like the cold air inside the trailer when we do live burns in colder temperatures. You can see it's just like flow path. You'll see the air and the temperature, it'll condensate and move to the fire, and then you'll see the warm air move out of the top of the building. Very similar. Negative stack effect is the opposite. Opposite in warmer climates, warm air enters the upper floors, displaces the cooler air, dense air to be forced to the ground level, bringing smoke and toxins with it, so it brings it down to us. So we've also seen this in like the winter and cooler months for us, where smoke will hang really low, or it goes up further into the sky. We'll have smoke that hangs right around the roof level and will confuse you. Same purpose. Stratification. As smoke rises, it loses temperature and begins to move slower, or move laterally. So when you get like a really rocking fire and it's real turbulent and stuff, the higher it goes and the more cooler it gets, it'll start to get lazy and spread out. That's what that is. Vertical extension. So this is auto exposure or lapping. So broken windows, porch fires, that kind of stuff. You guys remember the fire in Britain a couple years ago or 5 years ago, where it basically burned up the whole outside of the building and went up? That's the same thing. It just went up the outside of the building and didn't allow anybody to escape. Curtain wall extension. This is more prevalent. If you guys remember the Mirage fire. You guys ever heard of the Mirage fire in Las Vegas? No? Yes? One person knows. So the Mirage fire, there was basically a curtain wall around the top of the building so they could hide all the HVAC and stuff on the roof. Well, there's a fire in there and just spread throughout the curtain wall. Very similar to like a parapet wall. Same stuff. This is also the same as the curtain wall is also very similar to what the Great Britain fire was. There was an exterior stucco and foam built on the outside of the building, and it just traveled right up the outside of the building. Didn't know if the fire was on the inside or the outside, because of the amount of fire on the exterior of the building. Vertical extension. This is what we see a lot. Stair, elevator shafts, fires, or moving up the stairways or the elevator shafts, electrical data, plumbing, and HVAC, concealed spaces that we can't see, but it allows fire to travel throughout the floors. Also male laundry chutes, trash chutes will do the same. Guys, just think of it as a chimney. It's just gonna move smoke and fire up. Ventilation. Heat can build up quickly and in large quantities. Unfortunately, it cannot be easily removed from the building. Why is that? Why would ventilation be hard in a second story of a fourth story building? Because it's compartmentalized and it's on the floor. Do we have positive pressure fans that are strong enough to charge the stairways and push the smoke out? Does positive pressure fans work in smoke conditions? May or may not, because you need nice clean oxygen, right? Clean air for combustion to work inside of a combustion engine. So, we can't vertically vent the roof because it's on the second story. So how do we get the chimney effect to work there? We can't. So, horizontal vent. Open windows on the floor to remove and use negative pressure fans to assist. You can do that. That's old school. If we have battery powered fans like what's on the ladder or truck 3, it doesn't need to worry about combustion, so we can positively pressure stairwells or rooms with that. Some windows may be able to be not be able to be opened as a con. Air conditioning units may be in the way, right? Because some of these might be older buildings, so you might have a window air conditioner in the way. Vertical vent can be accomplished by using stairwells or other vertical shafts, but watch for extension. Using stairwells and smoke through stairwells, what does that do for victims trying to escape?
Makes it worse.
Makes it worse for them, so that means you have to shelter in place. It's not good to have people above the fire, right? Top floors can be easily vertically vented, of course, because they're on the top. Positive pressure needs to be used to protect the stairwells. So why do we protect the stairwells? Why do we positive pressure close stairwells?
Keeps smoke out.
Keeps the smoke out, keeps the fire out, hopefully. What is that good for?
Life safety.
Life safety, the fleeing occupants as well as ourselves. Can also be used to positive pressure the hallway if the fire room and the fire door is attacked, right? So if the door is attacked, not open, that entire hallway will be open. So we can basically charge that and positive pressure that whole hallway and keep the fire and smoke out of there for fleeing occupants as well as us. Can stack fans to get higher volume. You just keep stacking fans behind, put one fan into the other, helps make more CFMs. That's a lot of fans. Terrible picture, real grainy picture, but there's a bunch of fans, and then Chicago has one of their big positive pressure fans that's on the truck. Ventilation continued. Mechanical ventilation or smoke control systems. This would be like what we discussed earlier in the building systems. Using the HVAC systems to, missed the little part right there. To shut down, not to move smoke throughout the building. Small high rises may have a single HVAC system to control the atmosphere, or they might have room contained HVAC systems. Fire attack. Offensive fire attack, reconnected hose lines. Can be very time consuming in critical situation. Why would that be? Why would it be time consuming for reconnecting? Trying to weave it up the stairs while occupants are coming down, they're tripping over the hose line, everything else. It can be very time consuming. Length could be an issue. Friction loss. You might have to add more hose to it. What's the max length of 1 3/4 hose line? between 400 and 500 is really the max length for an inch and 3/4. You start doing more, there's more friction loss there and you lose flows. Can be a trip hazard like we discussed. Can block open doors. So if it blocks open doors, what's the problem with that?
You're messing with your zones of safety.
Yep. You're opening up, you open up those fire doors and you're now allowing for people coming from the floors down. Now they're getting into smoke and everything else. Once we put on the hinge side of the door, why we put hose on the hinge side of the door? Keeps the door open, so we can move the hose through. Burr, would you mind clicking on that video, please?
We talked about how occupancy, fire load, and the size of the fire determine the diameter of the line. The building's height, area, and setback from the street will determine the length of the stretch. Having a good pre-plan in place for the majority of the structures in your area will help with this. A modern pumper should have sufficient pre-connects ready to go for all of the most common buildings in your area. Avoid overly long pre-connects, as this causes reduced flows and dangerously high engine pressures due to friction loss. As a general rule, 4 lengths or 200 feet of 1.5-inch pre-connect is the maximum length if you want to maintain 125 gallon per minute flow. You can do 6 lengths or 300 feet of 1 3/4 pre-connect at 150 GPM or 2-inch hose at 190 GPM. If you need to go further than this, a pre-connect may not be the answer. One way to go further is to start with 10 to 12 lengths of 2.5-inch hose in the hose bed, then attach 4 to 6 lengths of 1 3/4 on top for better handling near the fire area. A good way of estimating the amount of hose length needed in a large building is to add the length plus the width of the building. So a 200-foot deep building with a 300-foot length should have at least 500 feet of hose line at the front door. You can stretch up 5 flights of stairs with just 1 length of hose, saving time and energy in the process. Don't forget to take the weight off the coupling at the top of the hose strap, however, and be sure to inform all the crew members of the engine when you plan on stretching up a center well, so they don't pull off too many lengths. Another method of stretching the hose line is by utilizing a rope to hoist the hose line up. The first time I saw this method of stretching, I was amazed. It was 6 a.m., and we had been assigned the vent and surge duties at the top floor of a 6-story apartment building. As we entered the ground floor, I saw 2 members of the first engine in the lobby, flaking out 5 or 6 lengths of hose. As I started up the stairs, I thought that they were a pretty poor engine company, not to have even 1 length of hose above the ground floor yet, since they had arrived before us. Well, when I rounded the staircase on the 5th floor, I was amazed to see a fully charged line coming in the stairway window. In fact, they already had the fire in the first room darkened down. What I had thought was utter confusion in the lobby was actually a well-executed hose stretch. The officer and 2 crew members had gone ahead of the hose line crew and went to the staging area between the 5th and 6th floors with a plastic bottle of rope. The nylon rope had clips on each end, and they fastened one end to the banister of the staircase. With that end secure, the whole bottle is dropped to waiting firefighters below. A 1.5-gallon bleach bottle easily holds 100 feet of 1/4-inch nylon rope. This technique works well for stretching up a fire escape as well. Be careful though, a fire escape stretch should not be the first tactic used. As a good fire officer, you will need to know when and where to commit your troops at any given fire scene. There are 3 factors that will help you decide. First, you must know the extent of the fire. Is there time to go into an offensive mode, or has the fire grown so large that a defensive posture is called for? Another factor to consider is the ability of your troops and resources at their disposal. A pumper that arrives on the scene of a heavy store fire with 3 men and only 1 3/4 pre-connects will be at an extreme disadvantage. If there are exposures threatened, send your crew there first. They will have little effect on the original fire store. On the other hand, if they were equipped with a large diameter supply line and a pre-connected master stream, they might be able to protect the exposure and darken a store fire by themselves. The third factor to consider before committing troops to an interior attack or protecting exposures should be the building construction. Even if the exposed building is made of non-combustible materials, extension may be possible. An exposed window in a brick wall can be all the fire needs to extend into the exposure. Radiant heat travels in straight lines. Therefore, distance and water on the exposure are the best protection from it. Wood frame houses present a severe exposure hazard. As fire vents out the windows, the siding can ignite and add to the heat that is threatening the exposures. When an entire wall surface is fully involved, A gap of 100 feet to the nearest exposure may not be enough to prevent extension.
Hey.
Hey, brother.
So, hose bundles or high-rise packs. So, what do we have? Well, we'll wait a little bit on that question. So, old school, like Fire 1 and 2, right? Or backdraft. We all, for some of us that have seen backdraft. So you have the twin donut roll or the accordion or flat load. A lot of big departments use the accordion or flat load and then just stretch it out. Mostly 1 3/4, but can be 2 inch. A lot of departments are going to 2 inch because it's, you know, it's like the miracle, you know. It's more flow than 1 3/4, but it's not the weight of the 2.5. You know, it's like the miracle, you know, hose, but we'll see. Can be small and compact like the above. Must be connected to a water supply below the fire and draped up the stairs, or gravity can help you, you know, can lower, or you can do the rope line. Hose must be kept on the outside of the walls. Why do we keep hose onto the outside of the walls?
So you can walk upstairs.
So you can keep the egress of us coming up and victim egress coming down. It also helps with limiting kinks, because, you know, if you're going around like this, you know, around the banisters or something like that, you're going to have the ability to kink down. So kinks cause friction loss and less flow. So you want it to be further out, so you're getting more flow. You're getting the max flow of the hose. And again, can be a trip hazard like we discussed, and may block doors. Bert, video.
Top one.
At some point, I'm going to replace these with all videos, and I'm going to.
In the car, the cup phone keeps phones secure in virtually any size cup holder. While in the home, the WeatherTech desk phone is the easiest way to...
Yeah.
What is it about? It's something involving...
I didn't pick yeah.
Alright, the first thing we want to suggest for folding your high-rise pack is to mark 32 inches measured from the end of the female coupling. The reason we suggest 32 inches is at the completion of the pack, you'll see how it goes on the end, on the back of the air pack, and 32 inches is much more compact, and it keeps that pack from hitting the back of your calves as you're ascending the stairs. So our first suggestion is 32 inches measured from the end of the female coupling, right in on both sides of the hose. That'll be our fold point. The next thing we want to suggest to you is to measure the middle of your hose. Just do that on the tarmac of the firehouse. Take some primer out of the cabinet and spray paint the middle, mark the middle of the hose. That becomes paramount for a quick line of sight indicator when making the stretch that you'll see later. So what we do is we find our mark that we suggest as 32 inches. What we're going to do is just make a simple accordion fold back and forth over itself. So we start on that line. Key points of this fold, we're going to stop just shy of the coupling. Then we're going to loop back over itself. The key to this fold is to keep it nice and straight. We just go back and forth. On each alternating pass, rotate the hose a little bit just so that it folds down nicely. And we just continue until we run out of hose.
That's word.
Our goal is that the couplings are on opposite side when you finish. And if you can tell, obviously here, we have a little bit of tail. What we're going to do is take this coupling, move back here, connect these together. The reason we connect them together is to protect the male threads. One of the issues with standpipe operations is that we need airtight or watertight seals. Any water leaking in a standpipe operation is going to wreak havoc on our inline gauge. So we're protecting the threads. If you notice, we've got a little bit of tail left over. What we're going to do is loop that all the way around, make it nice and compact, and just pick the middle and tuck it underneath. And there's the completion of our pack. What we're going to do next is flip it on end. This is a very important step. We've got to flip it on its end because it makes it nice and compact. Now, one of our recommendations is that we've got 3 total tie straps, Velcro straps. One of our suggestions is that we put 2 Velcro straps on the female coupling side. Again, it's another important line of sight visual reference that we'll show you during the stretch operations. Cinch it down. And our third strap goes at the base on the male side. Until our finished high-rise bundle is a nice, compact, easy to operate bundle. It's connected together with 2 straps on the female side. It becomes very important in the stretch operation that we'll show you later. When we're done, we place the pack on the back of the air pack, and it looks like so. Again, the reason we suggest 32 inches in the pack is notice how nice and short it is here. 36 inches, we start running into some problems where your calves are going to be hitting the back of it as you go up. But it's a nice, compact, tight, high-rise pack. All right, when completing the nozzle section of the pack, we folded it up, we attach our nozzle. Nice and tight. Where we want this nozzle to be is right at the end of the pack, where it folds in nice and compactly. We've got some excess tail. We're going to loop that back around to the female side, split it in the middle, and tuck it under there. Back on itself, rotate it up on end. Same principle. We're going to put 2 of our tie straps on the female end and 1 on the male end, which has the nozzle. Put that strap securely to the nozzle, because it really does make a difference when ascending the stairs. And again, our completed bundle in the nozzle section, the nozzle is tucked in nice and tight, opposite our female coupling.
So the next 2 is hallway stretches and then stairway stretches. So they're using the same bundles as they just showed.
Below the fire, we come up here, a couple things the firefighter needs to do. The standpipe that the firefighter wants to do is make sure the valve is shut, especially in a wet system, just like a hydrant. Now that that's done, he's going to try and get that cap off. A lot of times in these standpipe systems, we find that it's frozen, and that's the reason we carry an 18-inch aluminum pipe wrench. It's the only pipe wrench that will fit around a 2.5-inch thread. We use that, we set it, and we spin the cap right off. During this phase, one of the things that we want to do is identify whether or not this is a regular standpipe valve, i.e. class 1 or 3, or if there is a pressure reducing valve in place. If so, this is something that we can overcome. Next thing we're going to do is check for any debris in the standpipe. We don't want to use our fingers, use a chalk, use a tool, use something. We're then going to take a wire brush and scrub those threads. It's very important that we get a watertight seal on the standpipe, otherwise it's going to wreak havoc on our gauge. If needed, we're going to attach the elbow. The reason for the elbow is to take the kinks out of the 2.5-inch hose and get it going in a nice laminar flow. 2.5-inch hose is high volume, low pressure hose, so it is prone to kinking. We're going to get the elbow on here, and the next thing we're going to do is flush the system. We're going to flush the standpipe just like we would flush a hydrant. You have to remember, we flush a hydrant before every working fire, whether or not we go there once a week or once every 6 months. Same thing with the standpipe outlet. We don't know when the last time this was flowed, so we're going to flow water into the stairwell to make sure we get out any rust, scale, debris, what have you. We're then going to hook the most important part of our standpipe pack, and that's the inline gauge. It is paramount that we have an inline gauge in place off the standpipe. This is our discharge valve on our fire truck. All we've done is taken the fire truck and moved it 20 floors up, and we've got our discharge gauge. It's paramount. We get that in place, and we're good to go. We're ready to hook up our hose. Attack 2 is then going to shoulder 2 sections of hose and head up to the fire floor. Okay, we've just concluded drop point 1 on the apartment stretch. We're heading up to the fire floor. All right, we are now on the fire floor. Notice how the firefighter chocks the door open. This is what we call drop point 2 on the apartment stretch. Now it's worth mentioning, we're not masked up, we have dry hose, we're on the fire floor. 2 indications on an apartment stretch have to be met to do this. Number 1 is a tenable hallway. We suggest a tenable hallway be defined as you do not need to mask up. You may have a light haze in the area, but it is tenable. The second thing we need to have that's paramount is that Fire Tac 1 has door control of the fire apartment. They've got door control of the front door of the house on our fire floor. So we've just ascended to the fire floor. We have drop point 2. Firefighter drops the second high-rise bundle, drops it on the floor, drop point 2. Our door is chocked. We're now going to proceed to the fire apartment. We proceed to our fire apartment, which is apartment 514. Again, we have a tenable hallway. We have door control by Fire Tac 1 at apartment 514. Drop point 3 in the apartment stretch is at the fire apartment door. What I'm going to do is go ahead and drop down my bundle. Now we showed you in the folding section, very important that you mark the middle of your hose line. This is what this is for. It's a very quick reference ID point. I'm going to grab that and deploy the hose accordingly. Drop point 3. At this point, if you take a look, we have a tenable hallway, we have door control by Fire Tac 1, we have no kinks, all members are ready, we're ready to mask up and call the standpipe wheel firefighter for water. Go ahead and charge the line. This is a very easy, simple stretch. Again, 2 indications must be met. Tenable hallway, door control by Fire Tac 1. We stretch our hose dry to the fire apartment door, i.e. the front door of the house, or just several floors up. Once we get here, the reason for doing the apartment stretch like this is once we start our advance, we now have 1 friction point. 1 point in the stretch where the hose is going to bind up is right here in this corner, minus any corners that we might encounter inside the fire apartment. That's the beauty of the apartment stretch. One final point. Notice on the door. Take a look at your door and see which way the door swings. Notice that we have purposefully stretched our hose on the hinge side of the door. The reason we do that is once we advance through the fire apartment, the weight of the 2.5-inch hose is going to keep this door open. Had we stretched on this side, once our hose has gone around this friction point, that door is going to want to continue to close, and we have to chalk it. This way, we've got the hose on the hinge side of the door. This door is going to open into a wall, and we're ready to quickly advance into the fire apartment with 1 friction point on the attack team. That is called the apartment stretch. We stretch our hose dry to the fire apartment. 3 drop points. Drop point 1 on the standpipe floor, which is the floor below the fire. Drop point 2 on the fire floor, just outside the stairwell door. Drop point 3 at the fire apartment door. We stretch it dry, we call for water. 2 indications must be met. A tenable hallway, which we suggest be defined as we do not need to mask up. And number 2, and more important, is that Fire Tac 1 has door control of the fire
hose in
apartment.
the center of the room, the center of the hallway? We try to want to put that to one side or the other, right? so it's not a trip hazard. Especially when we open that door and fire, the smoke starts lapping out of it. That hallway is gonna fill up full of smoke, so we wanna be able to keep everything out of the center of the hallway, because we're firemen, we're gonna trip and hurt, fall over stuff, right? So, this is the stairwell stretch, so they're gonna use the same high-rise packs as what you saw before in the stairwell.
After drop point 2, I feed it out. Again, grab the middle point of my hose that I've marked previously, and I'm going to head up the stairs. Every building's going to be a little bit different. This is a very short run. We're only going up to the half landing. Some buildings are going to have a much longer stairwell, but it's limited by your building. So up we go, as far as we can. I do not want to pass this corner. Drop it like so. Notice that I have a lot of extra hose. It's going to vary on each stairwell. I want to get my hose up here. Now what we want to do is communicate with each other and feed all this extra hose back down to the standpipe floor and out into the hallway. So take snap. Notice right here, our final look is we have a nice straight run, nice loop, right up the stairs, and right down the stairwells to the standpipe floor. Notice where my nozzle is placed. Resist the temptation to put the nozzle right up to the door. When you charge this hose line, this 2.5 is going to expand, and it's going to put it right at the door, preventing me from opening the door and putting me right up against it. So give yourself some room. Let's take a look at how it looks the rest of the way down. So as you can see, it's one nice straight run on the outside of the stairwell as we come down, all the way onto the standpipe floor.
Sounds like, I'm like,
We hooked up to our gauge. We come back onto the standpipe floor, where the standpipe firefighter is going to grab the middle section that we marked previously and walk it straight down the hallway.
like drop point 1. Say if you started with drop point 2, showing you up on the fire on the fire floor.
One nice big loop.
But this is
Now,
technically
case in
drop
point, if you notice in this building, we had to stretch down the hallway this way. Every building's going to be different. A center core building, you're going to have one big open space right here, and you may be able to stretch straight out. Additionally, if you have an apartment right here, feel free to force this door and stretch our hose straight to that apartment to take this corner out of our stretch. Whatever you can do to facilitate the stretch with the 2.5-inch hose is going to make your work that much easier. We're now ready to charge. As we charge the hose, 3 critical points. We have to have a firefighter at each elevation point with his foot on the hose. Once the water passes, he's good to go. If we pan it up, we can see the next friction point. And proceed up the stairs. And our third friction point, what we're doing is we're making sure that we get the weight on the landing that the hose is on. If we don't step on the hose, the weight of the water is going to pull all of our 2.5 right down the stairwell. And we've got our hose right here by the door. We're ready to go. One of the critical points that we need to suggest in the stairwell stretch to Fire Tac 1 is that Fire Tac 1 has got to make the decision to join Fire Tac 2 and Fire Tac 3 on one hose line. We have to forgo that immediate attack backup mindset and put all available resources to the 2.5-inch hose line and get it in service as fast as we can and use the available flow knockdown power of the weapon to do our good for us. The 2.5-inch hose is heavy. It is hard to move. 4 people maneuvering the 2.5-inch hose around as many corners as we have here in the stairwell are going to take a beating. We need to assign Fire Tac 2 and Fire Tac 3. That's between 7 and 8 people, so that we can have a firefighter at each friction point to facilitate the advance. We've got Fire Tac 3 in place. We've got Fire Tac 2 in place. And when we start, notice how we've still got door control of the hallway, and we do not have anybody on the landing above. We still have door control. We bring all firefighters down. We're ready to make the advance. Prior to making the advance, Fire Tac 3 can begin what I call packaging the building. If you take a look down here in the landing, the firefighter is hoisting the 2.5-inch up against the walls. He's facilitating the advance to help give some slack to the attack team as they move. Each corner person can be doing this at their assigned location. Fire Tac 1 can now force the door. We're ready to flow water. In we go. We chop the door. I'll talk it. Now notice our, stop guys. Notice our gravity assist feed right here. We put the hose up the half landing for gravity assistance. We've given these guys roughly 25 feet of free rein to go around this corner. Down you go.
Remember to limit kinks. It's gonna cut you out of your flow.
I have one door firefighter that's right here. That door firefighter can assume a position to help facilitate around this corner. The 2.5 inch hose is a heavy weapon. One of the recommendations is to use your legs. Come over here, grab a bite, and use your leg muscles to facilitate the advance. This is happening all the way down to the floor below the fire. One other option is to take a seat at the corner position, lodge your feet into the corner, and use a rowing maneuver to use your legs. At some point, the nozzle team is going to need more help going around another corner. When that happens, this door position has to move up, this door position has to move up. It's a very fluid operation. This first door position from Fire Attack 3 is helping the hose advance. He's making a nice big loop in the stairwell. This lets him know when the attack team is advancing and gives them as much slack as possible. He continues this maneuver. He has to communicate with the last door position from Fire Attack 2. When it's time for him to move up, he will do so. Next position is to have this firefighter out here on the floor below, on the standpipe floor, also facilitating the advance. He's pulling it from the hallway and helping advancing it up to the next door position on the landing.
Burn.
Again, it's paramount that we combine Fire Attack 2 and 3 at the discretion of Fire Attack 1 to make this advance.
Okay, so basically, this is just to give you an option, or give you guys something to think about. This is the 2.5 hose stretch. It's super heavy, so how much is 50 foot fully charged of 2.5 weigh? Oh, come on, I know you know, come on. What?
78 pounds.
105 pounds
It would have been really cool.
per 50 foot section of 2.5 fully charged with water. So that's a lot of weight to move around. So that's why they're putting 3 engine companies on a hose line. You heard them say Fire Attack 1, Fire Attack 2, and Fire Attack 3. Those are all engine companies or truck companies assigned to that hose line to get it up the stairwell. Some departments will go finish going up, further up, to help get more gravity to feed that hose down. They only went up to the landing. I'm sure they did that because once you crack open that door and it's not a tenable hallway, that smoke and heat's gonna go up and you have an option of doing damage to the hose that's sitting on the landing, right? So you could lose your water supply, you could lose your tack line. So that's why I'm sure they only went up to the half landing. Let's take a little break, 15 minutes, and we'll move on to the next section.
finally decided to switch back on.
Coffee is getting big.
What made you switch back?
Took a 10-year break.
Trying to get one of those could go over.
I have iPhones since the one before the use of text picture text on.
Yeah. Kind of enjoyed it.
No.
That's what it said. You want to read it? You read the very beginning. It says that it's only 3 hours.
What's it Q5 though? Is that radio, the normal radio volume on that? I'm pretty sure I know. Okay.
Goodbye, Kelly.
My goal is 95 by next summer.
Planning on next year's base position?
No, I'm talking about
Getting bigger.
No, once this quarantine's over.
The biggest person you've ever met, the biggest firefighter I've ever met, was Phil Pfister. She's all last. You know who that is?
Yeah,
Weird. That's pretty. It's kind
I
of
walked in to West Virginia, right at the bottom of the
coffee
coffee
coaster thing.
well, the bottom of the fire station, so it's a coffee coaster made by cars.
Coffee coaster. Someone didn't just.
Walk in there, dude just goes up.
Yeah, I always thought that was just like a scrap piece or something.
I go to shake up the right thing, and I barely touch.
Hey, there's a good possibility that coffee you just poured is cold because nobody had the side burner on, so I just put it back on the hot burner.
No, that's okay.
Coffee not bad. I don't know how to use
People pay extra for iced coffee.
For real coffee drinkers.
It's a luxury of
Yeah,
McDonald's.
put it on the side burner for you.
Yeah,
You guys are nerds.
he was the biggest, and I put on his turn-up coat, and it went all the way to the ground.
I don't remember bourbon being around like this.
Stuff.
You guys got some creamer. I like coffee, but I don't really I love coffee, but then I have greens, just coffee. That's gross.
Dude, I thought you were some kids.
Guess why I'm drinking coffee to stay awake, you just stay asleep.
Got the eyes.
It's all good, actually.
All these games.
Plus, he could taller, there's nobody that bad boy.
Hey, would you see how much time's on it?
He's still.
I feel like I'm going really fast.
Hour and 31 minutes.
I'm going really fast.
You need a backup. Tell us about yourself. When you see that.
Evaluations, skills. Yeah.
So this is about, we're about a quarter of the way through this.
So, let's put you at lunch.
About a quarter of the way.
Through this chapter.
This is up.
We're in chapter 4.
Oh.
There's only 5 chapters.
Okay.
We're a quarter of the way through chapter 4.
This is a really long chapter though.
This
I
is
looked at
super
it.
long, yeah. This is like twice as long as everything else.
Okay.
So before we were taking a break, I was like, well, we'll probably break after this chapter, then start.
That's why I'm trying to figure out where to put my brakes and then
Yeah,
set it in the middle.
that would be a good spot.
Yeah, that's why I put it on there, mark the brake. And then I gotta fix the class 1 and class 2.
Bring your green hat.
And swap on the FEC, or on the standpipes.
I'm just kind of a fan of your 1970s videos.
Oh, dude, yeah.
See that carpeting, man? You can't find that stuff no more.
Yeah, you bring your green hat. The guy
Dude, you know they're using air too, right?
Yeah.
They're charging that, they're
Yeah.
charging those for air.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering about that, 'cause I was like,
That guy was manhandling that thing.
oh yeah, they're gonna make a mess in that hotel.
Yeah.
Why not? Glenn, how you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while.
There's a bunch more
Yeah,
pages,
you.
so-
You're Gillette, correct? That has not changed.
No.
Okay, how you been?
I'm good, man.
Good.
That's your eyes.
Plug along.
Yeah,
Driving truck.
yeah.
It's got more house.
Yeah, you gotta ask her.
Love it, man.
That's how I got.
Yeah.
Four houses where it's at.
Oh, I agree.
Dry.
Yeah, it's 4 houses. They moved out ladder truck to 4 houses.
Yeah.
I like 4 hours.
See what comes of a div chief position, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm not.
You'd give that up?
What's that?
You'd give that up?
Give up what? 4s for a div chief position?
No
Yeah.
more.
A 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
On slippery wet floors.
It'd be better for me and Bailey.
Be better for me too.
We might actually see each other if.
Bar,
Or
restaurant, shelf.
maybe it'll be worse for me.
I was
and
gonna say,
Bailey.
that might be-
I don't know.
It's in like the bar wells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For most guys.
No, I do want it. It's, yeah, the 40-hour work week is not ideal, but it's got its benefits to it that
Would you rather have the training or the other?
training, I have no desire to do support services. I didn't even apply for support services, I only applied for the training.
Did you already have an interview?
Mhm.
You offered me a job.
Yeah, everybody except for Kendall has been interviewed.
A 1 foot by 1 foot tile.
Who applied? I thought it was just you, Chris.
Me, Zoeller, Chase, and Kendall all applied. He's not, but
Or
you
you can
can
get-
apply and interview, because that's the thing, it's division chief position, it's outside the bargaining unit. So it, certifications at that point are a recommendation, because you're outside the bargaining unit. So, like, I don't have my officer 2 yet.
It's not just something.
I'm just waiting for the division to open up so I can go test. But, and Chase, that's what Chase is missing also, and he took the same officer 2 class as me, he's just waiting for the division to open up.
Firehouse red too.
And then he's gotta take ICS 400.
But he's taken the officer two, he just hasn't tested. I've taken officer two, I haven't tested.
Oh.
He needs to
Maximum order
12
tiles.
Yeah, the court honestly got canceled, so.
For those?
He interviewed, he was,
If you buy one by one tiles.
he applied, he interviewed.
So you guys-
We're just waiting to find out, more than likely, they're gonna give that one to the outside. And they're gonna bring in outside, they're gonna put it to the outside to see if there's any outside parties interested. That'd be my guess, and it's not because we're not, it's just, it's not because we're not gonna get the position, it's just, there's
You would think there was
only, well, only 3 of us applied for training, and only 2 applied for the support services. So, Zoeller was the only one that applied for both. 2 people don't make a process. 2 people don't make a process. 2 people don't make a, I mean, so, and if you're gonna put it out for one, you might as well put it out for both, because you never know what you're missing out. I mean, yeah, it sucks for us, it's just more competition, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, if I'm the best person for the job, I'm the best person for the job. Who knows if we'll get the Jerry Convenience training or the Jerry Convenience support services. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think at least one of the positions, and I don't know if it'll be training or support services, but I would bet at least one position.
It's a coach or sample.
But it never hurts to put the outside.
This is what the product's made of. This is what it's like to be like,
Maybe.
really cool. And then now you also have.
She gets put out for the 14-day hearing, and anybody can put in for it, and you've got some people that have a lot more seniority on you that they want to spend. So, you know, I'm sure Chase Smith wouldn't mind $9 support. I'm sure, I mean, not saying you wouldn't get it, not saying you will. No telling. That's the fun part of it is, there's no freaking telling. Yeah, I don't know, kind of talking to Chief Moore and just listening to what he was saying, I really think that they're gonna put them to the outside, just based off of the conversation that we had during the interview. Which, like I said, it sucks because it's more competition, but I'm alright.
Stretch that time frame out as far as when they're gonna make a
They can't do anything until after COVID anyway, because they can't promote from within until after that, because they still gotta do a captain's assessment before they can even promote from within.
That is true.
So,
Not necessarily. That boys down.
they are going to do a captain's assessment beforehand. The chief said.
They don't have to.
No, they don't have
They
to,
have an
but,
eligible guy unless they can go right into it.
yes, but it's, at that point, it's,
Just saying, this is kind of crap grease that we're not gonna get involved.
Probably not.
But as soon as they.
The last one.
they're gonna,
Probably.
It's never gonna stop.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys going to right away for us.
I was telling him, I'm so surprised that's the first time we've been there yet.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This is all started.
no, I think we have enough internal candidates that they.
Now, the next one's gonna be I fell and then killed myself on something.
Is that what you were told?
I fell.
What's that?
Is that what you were told?
No, we're talking about for captains.
Uh,
No, basically what Chief Moore told me was, without telling me, was that they're putting them to the outside, the two chiefs. I mean, he basically said it without saying it.
Yeah.
Dang.
You can go apply to be a training chief.
I'm good.
Yeah. What is it, emotional?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, here's what our stuff made
But
of.
if you send them
But
that-
those are 10 for some
Hey,
change.
you guys have a box of your coasters?
I would
will
say
pay
those are
you
10 for-
$20 for a box.
Hey, we're really looking at doing dry decking.
And we want
Oh,
every-
yeah, they would be a fun group to work
You have
for.
different colors with you.
Yeah,
And everybody have one.
In a year or two.
That's right. That's where I
Yeah.
can-
I'm with you, I'm in no hurry to
What
leave,
color
so.
are shit? Is it green?
I bet you they would. If you called them.
What's ours, like, isn't it green color?
He's he's very knowledgeable, he's got a whole hell of a lot of experience. And he's the type that he's a go-getter. If you're working for him, you're progressing, because your organization
A kangaroo, and there's.
He is not like.
He's very similar to like the
That's what
It's
call
not
those
the
are.
kangaroo, it's that, what's the Nixa hellhound? I bet they got a hellhound.
In the pouch.
I thought they were called Joey. Kids are goats.
The thing is, just goes around, it's just a real squared away. I'm gonna call him. Call him
That's-
knowledgeable,
They call them
personable,
RP is on scene, it says.
experienced kangaroo, the guy is just squared away.
So like, if you're there, like, obviously, that's a fire response too, because I'd be like, no, I mean, we need to go for medical. Well, it could be LR.
I'm gonna call him.
65 in Evans, that's Ozark. Or LR.
South of 65 in Evans, that's those are.
4 different departments.
Yeah.
4 different departments about there.
Ozark, Springfield,
Battlefield, well, we were there until the
For what?
65 in Battlefield, or 65 in Evans Road. It used to be Battlefield, Ozark, Springfield, and then LR.
Yeah.
Although would this be a very. But south of that, are you gonna do more Ozark district then? Because
Yep.
South of is Ozark.
like your
The end of the ramp to go southbound from Evans Road to 65, the end of the ramp is Ozark City.
So I bet you Ozark is called, Census County.
Or no, that's Christian County. That's the county line, so it becomes Ozark Fire District. The city limits is just like 100 feet past that, I think.
Oh, if it's a legit call, it's gonna be on KY3.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Kangaroo.
RP is on scene stating that somebody hit a kangaroo and there could be a kid in the pouch. So it's like, where'd you see this?
They hit a Joey.
It's in the call notes.
That would be something, where would the kangaroo come from?
Hey, there is a house over there.
Like, that's gonna be Joe Exotic, you know,
Dude,
type
there's,
all over.
we call it,
gosh.
there's a house over there we call the Snake House at LR, and it's right there.
There
It's-
is?
Circle?
Yeah, it's like Woodcliff. It's just like a,
So they could have a kangaroo with it.
I don't know, they got a bunch of like,
There is a snake
Like,
place there in Ozark that's got like
we
many
would
snakes,
go there all the
alligators,
time,
and
and
everything
they just
else.
meet us out front, and
Out there by
I
Walmart.
never went in, but
Yeah.
the guys there said that there's, they got like big ass.
You go out there.
Doesn't that, see that house
around the street yard.
right there, Lester, put their little kid, Lester and I don't kangaroo in that house, it goes over the river, over the pond, or they have it on, they have it for sale like $1.6 million. It was owned by like a dentist or, I don't know, doctor or someone like that. That house there, he
Yeah,
had a whole bunch
people
of,
there.
like, most poisonous deadly snakes.
Okay, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, boss.
Ready?
Yeah, it's over with.
Alright, so here's some pictures I found of some guys stretching in the stairwell, or sorry, in a hallway. And the stairwell, so what's the problem with this?
Pitch
point. Yep, it's on the inside, it needs to be on the outside. What's the problem here?
On the inside.
Trip hazard.
Okay, trip hazard. They're probably not done finishing the stretch, but they're working on it. What else could you do with the stairwell?
Drop it down the middle.
Drop it down the middle, you can go in and out to get, to make the connection if you needed to. All right, Cleveland bundle. So this is what we have currently on our engines, with inch and 3/4 hose, and a fog nozzle. So it can be small and compact for the most part. You know, yes, they're 6 feet behind the nozzle, but for the most part, they're pretty small. Easy to load and carry. Must be connected to the water supply below the fire and then charged on the landing of the fire floor. So that's the one good thing. We were talking about a break. The 2.5 that they were doing compared to our inch 3/4. You know, one of the best things that we can do with the best things that we have is most of the hose is on the landing of the fire floor that we can go straight on through the door to attack the fire. We don't have to make the stretch at the below, carry all the hose up the stairs, and then go to the stairs above, or the landing above, to help gravity feed us in. literally do at the landing right there at the fire floor, charge the line, and go in and make the, open the door and go into the hallway. Must be on the hinge side, that's pretty much standard. It has to be on the hinge side because it keeps the door open, right? Can be a trip hazard, but how do we stop that? We can flip it up onto the wall, right? Once we start making the stretch inside, it starts unrolling. We can literally pick the hose up, put it on the wall, and it'll still unroll and go through the door. It may block doors open, which leads to smoke in the stairwell, and which is going to cause heat and smoke into the rest of the stairwell. It's flow path, all that other good stuff. You know, if we have positive pressure in the stairwell and it's pushing through, we're giving the fire nice clean oxygen to add to fire spread. Bird, video.
In today's training video, we'll be demonstrating the construction and deployment of the new 1 3/4 bundle. This can be found in the Colorado Fire Department Training Manual, section 0305-16.
Yeah, their entire city now is like, yes.
A 100-foot section of 1 3/4 hose and a quadrifold nozzle are required to make the bundle. Additionally, a gated Y can be attached if needed. To begin constructing the bundle, attach the nozzle to the male end of the hose. Straighten out approximately 6 feet of hose behind the nozzle and make a twist in the line so the hose is going back in the opposite direction. Continue wrapping the hose in this fashion while making sure there are no twists within the line. After the bundle is made, attach the gated Y to the female coupling. The gated Y should be on the opposite end of the nozzle. Secure the Y with a strap at the end of the bundle. Tightly fasten the remaining straps to ensure the nozzle and the center of the hose are well secured. The bundle is now complete and ready for deployment. Upon the command, extend the bundles, proceed to the rear of the apparatus. Safely shoulder the bundle and proceed to the designated area. Under normal circumstances, the bundle with the gated Y will be utilized first. The bundle can be deployed in areas where space is limited, such as stairwells, narrow side yards, or on the front porch of a residence with numerous obstacles. Place the bundle on the ground and release the straps. Firefighter number 2 will connect the bundle to the water supply. While firefighter number 1 spreads the bundle from the center to form a loop and calls for water. As the line charges, you may need to assist in the formation of the loops.
They're using air.
Bleed air from the line. Check your nozzle and prepare to make entry. While making fire attack, the line can be fully advanced by one firefighter with little effort. Once in service, the bundle can be placed on end. This will allow additional room for firefighters and equipment.
So in the video, it's a training video. They went to the landing above the fire. Technically, we want to go to the landing below, right? Because we want to make sure that the safe point is below the fire, not above the fire. This is currently what we have in service, is the Cleveland bundles. It's going to end up changing. It's 6 feet behind the nozzle, but because of the ladder truck and where it's posted, there's going to be a little change in the makeup of that hose. It's going to go down to 75 inches behind the nozzle. That's because the way the bundle is placed on the ladder truck, that's the most space that we have available. So that makes the rest of the packs a little shorter. Still works out, still operates the same, still flows. You can get that, you can make the Cleveland bundle like all the way down to like 3 feet. So it's not gonna be a big deal. The next thing we have is the 2.5 inch lead-in pack or the standpipe pack. So this is a 50-foot section of hose of 2.5 or 3 inch, laid back and forth about 6 feet. That's also going to change down to 75 inches. It can't be any bigger than 75 inches. Basically, it's accordion or a flat load, just depending on how you look at it. And it's used for a standpipe because we don't have any standpipes. We use this 2.5 and basically make our own standpipe. So you're not carrying hose up, which cuts down on time, hand jacking up hose, or hand jacking up hand lines up stairwells. So you just, the driver and the firefighter shoulder the bundle, or not the driver, the firefighter and the officer shoulder the bundles and go to the fire floor, a tendable fire floor, or a tendable room, and start making preparations to charge that line. The driver pulls the 2.5 pre-connect. If the distance is long, or a 2.5 out of the driver's compartment to make the connection to that, to supply that standpipe, and then we have our own standpipe. The gated Y is on the 1.75" pack because that's in case we go to Springfield or whatever that has standpipes, we don't have to worry about taking the standpipe out of the compartment that we don't have, or taking it off the other bundle when we're going up to those out-of-weight areas. It's already on the hose pack.
What's the thought behind using the fog instead of the smooth bore?
Do what?
What's the thought behind using the fog instead of the smooth bore on the high rise?
Just because we have more fogs than we have smooth bores. That's really the biggest thing. The best thing, one of the biggest reasons you want to use a smooth bore over a fog nozzle in high rise operations is because of the debris that's inside those standpipes from sitting for years. You don't want that debris to get stuck in the nozzle. In a smooth bore, it's just going to come flow right out. In a fog nozzle, it could get stuck within that deflector shield or in the deflector. So it's your flow and stream is going to be different. So that's the biggest thing. The next biggest is flow. Smooth bore flows a little bit more than the fog nozzle, so that's the next biggest thought over smooth bore or fog in high rise. You know, the old days of 100 PSI fog nozzles, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was getting at. Why are we using the smooth bore for ours?
One at a time. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you want low PS or you want low PSI, because you're going up multiple floors, you don't want to be having to try and charge 100 PSI fog nozzle, 20 stories up. That's why you do low pressure. So here's two Cleveland bundles with a standby pack. This is actually a lead-in pack because it's a lot shorter. It's not 50 feet. This would be like for an aerial, just take a nozzle off an aerial and to put it there, which you'll see later down the road, or you'll see later in the slides. Or extending out a standpipe up to the next landing so that you can connect your high-rise packs to it. It's like 25 feet of 3 inch. So there we see the bundle stretched out, and ready to be charged. That's what it looks like charged. That's what's shouldering it. You can also wear it on your SCBA. Leaves hands open for banisters or carrying extra tools, so you can get up to the fire floor. You can tilt it up on its side. Now we're going to go over the 2.5 lead impact. Bert, would you mind looking at that video again? Now you'll really like this one. This one's good too.
Apartment with appliance.
Oh, God.
Or one plate.
I am. This computer is less than cooperative.
One of the challenges that an energy company will face from time to time is when a fire breaks out in a large apartment complex. Access for handlines is often too difficult or the distance is too great to simply pull an 1 3/4 line across it. The apartment lay with an appliance is an effective hose evolution that will provide an attack line on the fire floor with the ability to quickly add a backup line. Ideally, this lay should be used in a large apartment building where access to the involved unit would make it difficult to pull a line through a long corridor. The first energy company arrives on scene. The captain completes an initial size up and the order is given to complete an apartment lay. The crew repeats the order. The captain and the firefighters don their SCBAs. The captain and firefighter 1 will then get the 2.5 inch lead impact and the 1 3/4 high-rise packs. Firefighter 1 will also take any additional equipment that the captain calls for. Firefighter 2 receives the order to pull a 2.5 inch line below a window that is adjacent to the involved unit. The order is repeated. At this point, the decision must be made as to which appliance will be used. The appliance can be a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch double gated wide, or a 2.5 inch by 1.5 inch triple gated water thief, or a 2.5 inch nozzle with a removable 2.5 inch tip. If the wide or the water thief are chosen, the nozzle should be broken and left at the apparatus prior to extending the 2.5. The captain and firefighter 1 proceed to find the quickest access into the building and up to the fire floor, while firefighter 2 pulls a 2.5 inch line to the designated location determined by the captain. Once there, the connection is completed between the appliance and the hose. The gates of the appliance or the bail of the nozzle are closed and the call for water is made. At this point, the line can be charged, which then gives the engineer the opportunity to get a water supply. Firefighter 2 will then wait for the female end of the 2.5 inch lead impact to be lowered from the window above. When the captain and firefighter 1 have reached the designated window, they set the packs on the floor and begin to remove the straps.
They have 7 straps. That's like almost excessive.
Once the lead impact has been disassembled, firefighter 1 will lower the female end out the window to firefighter 2. When the hose has been connected to the appliance, water can be delivered as soon as it is called for. Before calling for water, firefighter 1 will ensure that the hose has been secured so that the weight of the water in the line will not pull it out the window. The captain and firefighter 1 then prepare to extend the handline.
It is imperative
If the appliance is equipped with locking valve
that the
handles,
person
then the
kneel on
open
that
valve
hose
must
before
be
that water
locked
comes
open.
up. We're able to pull all that hose right back out the
If the
window.
appliance is not equipped with locking valve handles, the open valve must be strapped open.
Which we
Here,
can do
the use of
easily
the
with our
utility strap
Velcro
is
straps.
demonstrated to secure the gate in the open position. using a nozzle as a valve, the bail must be strapped in the open position. Again, utilizing the utility strap, the firefighter is able to secure the bail in the open position. Once the bail is secured, the removable tip is secured utilizing the nozzle strap. In this demonstration, the nozzle strap is used to secure the bail open. After securing the water supply, Firefighter 2 will join the captain and Firefighter 1 on the fire floor. Apartment lay without an appliance. Not all engine companies are equipped with the same appliances. Here we will see the same apartment lay operation, but this time completed with a 2.5-inch handline without an appliance. The captain and firefighters don their SCBAs. The captain sizes up the structure, and Firefighter 2 receives the order to pull a 2.5-inch line below a window that is adjacent to the involved unit. The order is repeated. The captain and Firefighter 1 will then get the 2.5-inch lead-in pack and the 1.75-inch high-rise pack. The 2.5-inch handline is extended to the predetermined location. Once there, the nozzle is removed. The captain and Firefighter 1 proceed to find the quickest access into the building and up to the fire floor. Firefighter 2 will then wait for the female end of the 2.5-inch lead-in pack to be lowered from the window above. When the hose has been connected, water can be delivered to the gated Y above. The call for water is relayed to the engineer.
So slightly different, but that's to show the gist of how the packs and how the standby pack works with the 1.75 pack. Their makeup was a little bit different than ours, but it's pretty close to how to do it. So the next, when we don't have a standpipe, is to use the aerial master stream. So we're lucky, we're blessed to have a new aerial. So the aerial nozzle actually has a 2.5-inch gated Y, or has a 2.5-inch gate valve on the nozzle, so you don't have to take the nozzle off. You can take the cap off and basically put your gated Y there, or your 2.5 standpipe pack to extend the line from there. Some of the issues with that is using the aerial device as a tactic, you then don't, it's pretty much stationary. You don't ever get to use it for anything else. You know, if somebody needs to be rescued or you need the aerial for something else, you can't because the hose is pretty much in place, it's connected to it. So it's an option. Just, you know, exhaust all options before, you know, you picking that one. This kind of shows, this is actually showing them taking the nozzle off and going through there. So you see the little standby pack there, and the Cleveland bundle attached to that water thief. So again, fire attack, defensive, you know, 2.5 hand lines, fog or smooth bore, blitz fire, ground monitors, deck guns, aerial master streams, all normal stuff that we'd use for a defensive. water supply, there's the need for several hydrants. You might need several hydrants for these. There might be a lot of fire load, especially if you think about that, that Houston fire with that building and fully involved. That's a considerable amount of water needs to put out that building, or you let it burn down your capability. But you're gonna need to think about multiple water supplies. The engine officers need to be thinking about coming in from different locations so that you're getting different plugs, so that you're bringing in multiple water supply lines, not just one. Search and rescue, so this one gets kind of in depth. Primary and secondary search need to be completed as soon as possible to the fire floor and the floors above, right? Because that's where the most hazard is, because smoke and fire go up. This is very manpower intensive. If you have a building equipped with pull stations that, or fire alarm system, you need to pull these immediately if it's not already going. You'll be surprised. Some places, people completely forget to pull the fire alarm. It happens. If it hasn't already been pulled or it's not already been going off, you need to pull it, because that's going to alert everybody on in that building to now evacuate. Utilize law enforcement for wow, I just stroked. For floors below the fire. There's no hazard there, so get them to knock on doors and get people out. There's no sense in putting fire crews to that when we can utilize cops. Ground ladders, aerial ladders can be used to rescue people, as well as an insurance policy for us for ways to get out. If multiple stairwells are available, try to dedicate one to fire suppression and try to dedicate one to fire evacuation. That just helps with, for one, charging them with positive pressure ventilation, as well as you limit the risk of slowing down the hose tack team with people evacuating the building. If stairwells aren't pressurized by any building system, we charge them with a positive pressure fan. Just remember to make sure the doors are getting closed, because you're going to add to the fire spread if there's not a hose line in place. Rig and evacuation. Rigs must be in place with crews operating in an IDLH atmosphere. We all know that. Normal rig is composed of a minimum of 2, right? 2 on, 2 out, or 2 in, 2 out. These are going to be manpower intensive, so as well as climbing multiple stairs and long distances to try and find down firefighters. There needs to be multiple people, and they need to be staged at not outside on maybe the floor below, instead of, you know, on the ground, or on the ground floor or out by the truck. They need to be a lot closer. That helps with fatigue on those individuals, as well as getting there quicker to the down firefighters. In some cases, a RIC supervisor of a chief officer is good to have. Do not confuse RICs with 2 in, 2 out, or backup lines. So, RIC is not a backup team, it's RIC. They're for us. They're our insurance policy, hopefully to get us out. Discussion. What is vertical extension?
Upward spread of fire.
Fire spread upwards. Due to what? An open window, some kind of hole in the exterior. What could prevent vertical ventilation from being completed in a multi-story building?
It's not the top floor.
Not the top floor.
That sucks.
What could be a major issue with pre-connected hose lines?
No stretch far enough.
Might not be long enough. Friction loss might be too high. Does your department have high-rise packs, and what are they?
Yes.
You don't have the Cleveland bundle, and you have the standby pack. And soon to have a 2.5 pack as well. When When do you establish RIC and how many is usually on it? When does our department usually establish RIC?
Pretty much immediately.
Hopefully within the first alarm. And then how many is usually on it?
Minimum 2 weeks. Minimum 2.
Minimum 2. Hopefully 3 as an engine company, but we all know how well that goes. We're low staff personnel like in Bird's class. So. All right, chapter 5, objectives. Student will be able to identify roles and responsibilities for the incident commander within 1 minute. So we're going to go over resources, staging, logistics, first alarm assignments, and the IC, and pre-planning, the actual building. Resources, conditions or reasons. Just because you can't see smoke, don't become complacent. Might not be just a fire alarm. There might actually be a fire. If you see a header, call for a second alarm. See a big cloud of smoke, call for a second alarm. Or multiple reports from dispatch. They're getting multiple calls, call for a second alarm. Get the people en route. We can always cancel them or return them, right? Or previous incidents at the location. So we've all been to the one place that's super scary because, you know, there's newspapers that are on both sides of the hallway and you have to walk like this to get down it. Or they're 600 pounds and how are we going to get them out? Or it's just a bad place or a bad neighborhood. There's low income. We all know that those places are going to have the potential of having fire before anything else, right? Or catching fire before any other ones. Other concerns, building construction, we know that from looking up like what we've done on the 3-story nursing home. We saw that going up, so we know how it was built, so it's the same thing. Water supply issues, there's some places in Station 3 zone that don't have hydrants. So that could be an issue. So then you call for a tender task force or more engines to make a longer stretch and supply that you just combat those supply issues. Hoarder or heavy fire load, we all know what hoarder and heavy fire load is. Or no sprinklers. We can see the header and we know there's no sprinklers, and we know that the breezeways are unprotected and are wood. So once that breaches, there's no way for them to get out or for us to get in. Staging. Location for staging is usually 2 floors. Now this is the difference between single family residences and staging in a bigger building, like a high rise or something like that. So staging is usually 2 floors down from the fire floor. All apparatus will report to the base location, which is what we would call staging, or what we think of as staging, level 1, level 2 staging. So the apparatus are not in the way of other resources coming in. We don't want to block or fill up a bunch of spots for the ladder trucks that are needed for these type of scenes. Once contacted by the base crews, they move to make their way through to the lobby, which is another spot, and give their location to staging. Crews need to bring extra equipment, SCBA bottles, tools, hose bundles, to the lobby and then to the staging location 2 floors below. Why would we want to bring more equipment?
So it's there.
So we're there, we're building an equipment cache, right? We want SCBA bottles up there so we don't have to go, oh crap, we're out of air, we need bottles. And you don't want to have to go 2 or 3 floors down to go to rehab, right? So we're just taking more time and more fatigue climbing up and down stairs when we could just go a couple floors down and rehab. Staging officer is usually assigned by IC, and usually a BC, sometimes with bigger incidents. Reports to IC during the initial phases and then operates if staffed. or operations if operations is staffed. Pull and deploy personnel quickly to the fire floor. So when, let's say we have a fire on the 3rd story and it's Division 3 and we set up an equipment cache on floor 1 or floor 2. That would be where the staging officer is, and he starts pooling all the resources there. So, and then when Division 3 calls and says, hey, I need personnel for fire attack, then they go staging, sends those personnel straight to the fire floor. As well as builds an equipment cache and records all the equipment that's coming in. SCBA bottles, hose bundles, extra stuff. And can also be used as a rehab. Needs to keep track of what goes in and who goes out. Stockpiles resources. Dispatches resources at the direction of IC, and can request additional units if needs to. And he will contact the base leader, which is what we would call staging normally, to get more people. Logistics, so this goes into a little bit bigger grand scheme of things. The base, that is the first riding officer at base, or what we would call staging normally. He serves as an assembly and deployment area, so they bring all those apparatus like a division or a level 2 staging. He'd bring all the individuals there, or all the fire trucks there, and then he'd send all those individuals to staging, or to lobby. Works with lobby control so that everybody is documented going in and out of the building. IC determines and needs the location for base. Most of the time, the IC will pick those locations where that needs to be and determines level of resources required. And IC can direct base to contact dispatch when units are being used. Reports to logistics or IC if logistics is not assigned. Base location is in a safe out of the way location, so that they're not putting all the units right next to the building, so we can't get other apparatus and more important apparatus. Establishes equipment pools and ensures resources are requested before they are needed. So he's constantly filling the base with resources, calling dispatching, getting more units dispatched. Lobby control, this is probably a position that won't get filled very often, at least for us. It's a priority position for high rises, but for us it's probably not going to be filled. Reports to logistics or IC if logistics is not staffed. They get building information, control the elevators, control power, get with maintenance personnel to figure out where everything is, and to basically just make sure that everybody that goes into the building is documented so that we can keep accountability. Ground support, reports to logistics or IC. If logistics is not staffed, more equipment from base to staging. They're just like they're like pack mules is the easiest way to describe them. All they do is literally just they grab SCBA bottles and hose and everything else and just bring everything up to staging from the lobby. Teams of 2 because of why do we always do teams of 2?
Safety.
Buddy system, safety. We always got to be accountable for each other. Reports to logistics. Provides effective communication with IC and personnel. Handles communication with outside agencies as communication, and brings extra radio and spare bottles. We have some entities that do this for us, but it's not used very often. Systems is very similar to lobby. They literally, again, monitor in bigger buildings what's going on, HVAC systems, environmental systems, life safety controls, Communication and elevator is a liaison between the building engineer and the utility company to make sure utilities are cut off to the building. This is probably going to be more of a chief officer within our smaller department, just to provide, just because positions, that's a lot of personnel to try and fill. Accountability. This is very difficult because the amount of people that could be coming to these scenes and in and out moving throughout the scene. Going from up and down to rehab, and depending on where rehab is. So list maintains by those three, accountability contacts those three units and make sure that those lists are communicating well with each other and are the same. Tracks companies throughout the incident. Command directs all requests for PARs to the appropriate chief that's in charge of those areas. First alarm assignment and IC. The first arriving unit must create a foundation to support the incident. Initial size up, radio report. Maybe a lack of smoke, don't get complacent. If smoke is showing while responding or arriving, call for more resources, right? Get them en route. Building size. Give the size of the building, what kind of occupancy it is. Obvious conditions and any safety concerns. You can tell by when an officer gets on scene if he's worried or not worried, right? You can tell by that. Information gathering. The initial IC needs to be checking the panel to find out where the fire is, if it has an alarm system. Monitor the panel, see if any additional alarms come in. So in bigger buildings, you'll see floors above start to send in alarms. Check the elevators and make sure they're controlled and at the ground. Why do we not go on elevators? They get stuck. They get prone to their electronics. So when water starts flowing and moving around and fire starts melting and you lose power, you get stuck in elevators. So that's why you use stairs. Don't use elevators. Even if they're below the fire floor, you still don't use that elevator. Water can still get to there. Seek information from on-site building personnel. This would be like for the 3-story nursing home, is getting with the head nurse and those kind of things to get the amount of people in that building, how many people have been evacuated, has evacuation started, and any other pertinent information, where the fire is, do they have any idea, have they put a nurse on the floor to see if it is a legit call or not. Of course, the first arriving officer is going to assume command unless he's in rescue. Request additional resources if it hasn't already. Assign units to the FDC or standby function. Why do we assign people to the FDC?
Like an engine crew?
Yep, an
or
engine crew.
a DO at least?
An engine. Why do we assign an engine to an FDC?
Sure, proper water pressure.
If the sprinklers work, they're gonna do a lot.
To help support the sprinkler system. Because the sprinkler system is going to hold the fire in check, which is going to allow for victims to evacuate the building. Obtain building keys and start evacuation. That can be as simple as, or tell the 3 battlefield cops or the Greene County deputies on scene, hey, I need you to start getting everybody out on the first floor. Going to the Knox box and getting all the keys out of there, right? For the buildings that we have Knox boxes for. Start gaining access. And remain in a command until proper transfer can be made to a higher level officer. Try not to go into the building. Try to stay in a command position, in this command role. Either at the engine or wherever you put, try to stay there. The incident commander, the first arriving officer, command post must stay on the ground level. lobby or building exterior, announce where this location or the command post location is. Transfer of command, this is announcing transfer of command. Brief incoming chief or and rejoin your company once you have transferred command to the chief. Size up and report conditions. This is all going to kind of review. Confirm staging floor, base location, establish resources for the floor and announce location. Determine initial strategy, tactics, and initial assignments. We'd all do this as an officer. Evaluate or enacting out a grade for some of you. Evaluate and anticipate resources needed. If I need a second or third alarm, start calling for more units as soon as possible. These are going to be manpower intensive. Transfer of command to a chief officer. Duties of the chief officer. Determine overall IAP, which is incident action plan. Assign personnel and gets reports. Assign personnel, or assign command positions. Group supervisors used to divide the incident functionally. Divisions are used to divide incident geographically. So a group supervisor does what? A group can go where on a fire scene?
Wherever the task is needed.
Wherever the task is needed. A division is what?
One spot.
One spot.
Area.
But they do what within that one floor?
Could be everything.
They are in charge of everything. They are their own incident commander for that floor. If we say the floor. So they take care of fire attack, they take care of ventilation, they take care of all of that. Assign support units. This is what we talked about earlier. Lobby, base, staging, ground support, systems, accountability, safety officers, and communications. Pre-plans. So, why are pre-plans so important? Because they give us a reason to familiarize ourselves with the buildings and make plans before the fire happens. Just like all the times we've went into the 3-story nursing home to build plans on how we're gonna fight a fire in here if there is a fire. We measured out the floors to see how long they are, to see how long our hose stretches are gonna be. And those stretches are extremely long in that building, right? Because there's only 2 stairwells and they're both at either end of the building, right? With elevators in the center. There's no center stairwell. So we're gonna need to putting in lots of extra hose to make stretches on the 3rd story or 2nd story to get to the center, right? So we go over pre-plans that are used to determine the building construction, which is type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5. What type of occupancy it is, if it's a nursing home facility or an assembly facility. Building length and width. Why is length and width good? Good to know.
Measure hose lines.
Measuring hose lines on how much hose we're gonna need. So you nozzle guys need to know how long your crosslays are, right? It's good to know how long your crosslays are and how much hose in your fire truck or in your engine company, so you know how much you can stretch. Do we carry any extra hose other than the high-rise packs? Let's say 2.5. Where is it? Engineer's compartment and storage rolls. Is that conducive for rolling out quickly in a fire floor? Or are they donut rolls?
Down the hallway, you could go pretty good.
Down the hallway, you can go pretty good.
At the old folks home.
Yeah.
Right down to the elevator.
So supply lines and attack lines, to know the lengths. Fire load and water needed to extinguish the building. What's the fire load inside those inside the nursing home? Not too bad. I don't know what they're allowed to bring in, but I'm sure they're not allowed to bring in oil lamps and, grand pianos and stuff into that building. So, and they're all sprinklered and they're compartmentalized. So that should help too with containing fire in those buildings, or in that building. Hazards to personnel. What's important? What's a hazard to personnel in a pre-plan?
HVAC.
Chemicals, HVAC, especially if the HVAC is on the roof. So if the structural members of the roof are in direct flame impingement, now you got this heavy air conditioner that's gonna fall and keep going until it finds something strong enough to stop it. And your head is not one of them. Well, it is. What else is life safety? Or what else is a hazard?
Solar panels.
Solar panels. Electrical and gas. Especially in buildings that are that big and that long. How many gas division areas do they have? Distribution areas do they have within that building? Do I have to go and close every valve, or can I close one valve? How long is the residual gas gonna remain in that building? Does it have oxygen throughout the building and it's supplied? Oxygen, 100% oxygen makes lots of fire real quickly. So, what fire protection systems does they have, and what life safety systems do they have? That's good to know. If it's got protected stairwells or enclosed stairwells, if there are sprinkler systems throughout, if there are sprinkler systems that are just protecting egress, that's still good to know. At least we won't have to worry about protecting the breezeway, because it is protected by a sprinkler. What are some criteria to call for additional resources?
Yeah, extra hazards.
Yep, we've been in the building. It's super scary.
See it from a mile away.
See the header from a mile away. Multiple calls from dispatch, or multiple calls to dispatch. Name some of the important positions not normally used on fires. So this is the fun ones that we brought up. Name some of those positions. Staging.
Ground support guys.
Ground support. 3 more-ish. Medium use divisions.
Who's the logistics?
Logistics,
supervisor?
not normally.
Or chief?
Lobby. Base. And what are pre-plans for? So you know what you're getting into before the call hits. All right. So we went over the introduction. Y'all got to know me, which you should all know me anyway, but anyway, y'all got to know me. We went over, so what makes a high-rise a high-rise?
It's gotta be above 75 feet.
75 feet.
Or above your
That's
ground ladder or
NFPA
your.
101. Building construction. What's type 1? Old style.
Protected steel central column going up the middle to provide support.
Okay. So pyramid
Old
style.
You said old style, yeah.
Yep, old style. Pyramid style. Center, all the
Central
beams.
floor.
Central floor. It's pyramid, it goes up, it stacks up. What's new style?
Skeletal steel.
Skeletal steel with all the chase and stairwells and elevator shafts all going up the center. And uses the exterior of the building to support the structure. What's type 2?
Unprotected steel, same as type 1.
Unprotected steel. Type 5?
Wood frame.
Wood frame. Building systems. What building systems did we learn about? What? Multiple stories. What building systems are within those multiple stories? What could be inside those multiple stories? Compartmentalization.
FDC.
Standpipes, FTCs, sprinklers, smoke detectors, heat detectors. Operations. So, ventilation. What's difficult about ventilation?
May not be the top yet. Maybe on the middle floor.
Could be on the middle floor, so vertical vent can't be used. Might have to use horizontal. What's the issues with mechanical ventilation?
Stairwells and compartments.
Stairwells and compartments and gas motors. Fire attack. What did we learn in fire attack?
Long stretches.
Long stretches, could be long stretches. Might have to go up stairwells, so there's multiple different ways to keep the hose out of the stairwells for fleeing occupants. Search and rescue. What's the issue? What's one of the biggest issues with search and rescue?
Large area.
Large
Lots
area.
of compartments.
Could have lots of people. Could be manpower intensive. IC roles and responsibilities. What's important that for the first arriving officer to do? Strong foundation so that the scene goes harmoniously after. You know? We've all had the issue of getting on scene and, oh crap, it didn't go quite like I wanted it to, and then it just like snowballs in effect afterwards. So a strong foundation for these calls, because we're already behind the 8 ball, right? Because we're short-staffed, and we're not used to these calls. We're not used to these fires. We're not used to fires anyway, but we're not used to these fires either. So we're behind the 8 ball, right? What's other important about your RIC that was back in
We
operations?
used to have 4 people instead of 2,
Needs
preferably
to have
as
more.
soon as possible.
As soon as possible. And in a spot where they can get to the fire floor quickly, right? Here's your objectives. Learned in class. I'm not going to read those again. You guys can read them. You guys have it printed in front of you. How and when the information is applied. Should apply when doing multi-company trainings or bring it to your training chief for auto-way trainings. You can simulate with dry erase board or pictures from the internet. We're going to do that here real soon. So restate the value. We all know that short-staffed, and we all know that we're behind the 8 ball when these calls come out. So know your district, train on your long hose lays, and get procedures in place. And call for help early. They can always be turned around, right? This is all promoting continuing education. Guys, don't stop training, don't stop going to classes, always continue to go to classes. I know we discussed a lot of information, and we discussed it pretty quick. Does anybody have any different ideas or any questions or concerns that I could bring up? What we've talked about? No? Alrighty, let's take a quick break. Check out this. So we can do our activity and then our tests. Activity and test. Should have been paying attention. Screw you. Yeah, kicked it. Big tank will go. What is this activity? Yes.
Here.
You believe it's cactus.
Oh, shit, you hear?
Leftover enjoy.
Yeah, you hear that?
That one was a little more soggy. Oh, yeah, but it'd be good if you put it in the oven or, yeah.
what's for dinner tonight?
I think, he's making Italian dish.
Ravioli. Spaghetti. Spaghetti and butter.
Spaghetti.
Tacos. Me and chips. Justin and I. Just for us too. Everybody else already has their stuff.
I'm having tacos as well, but it's tacos that were
Yeah,
already
raw
made.
tacos.
Oh.
And then Kedron's over there eating celery with peanut butter on
I'm
it.
having leftover Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, but that was his lunch.
That's been the hardest part of getting used to at Three Houses, this whole rotation of cooking. Cause I like just to bring whatever.
That's what we usually do, like, we'll usually do like one thing together and then the other nights like free reign. And then breakfast and lunch is all on your own.
Very.
Yeah.
Or not being able to go to Walmart just to go buy your food.
Mhm.
Well, that's what I like, being able
After
to make
dinner
something
and
from
stuff.
time to time, but
I suck at that.
I wanted to do it the first or second night, doesn't matter. Somebody cook and then you're on your own.
Mhm.
So it makes it to where 4 or 5 person, you're only doing it once.
well, I like to do that just because everybody's like, it's hard to agree on. It's hard to think of a meal anyway, and then it's like now you have to all want to have it. And then you have to have the ingredients for it or go get them.
Maybe that's for some kitchen.
Sometimes it's.
I like that. I
it's
have
nice.
peanut allergy. I can eat those all the time.
I'm on the extra gluten diet.
Extra.
How much gluten's in that? That's not enough.
Ball.
Hard.
Yeah. Probably why.
Better refill it.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna put it back.
I need another pitcher so that you can pour the filtered water in
Put
that
it
one.
back empty.
Gotta keep that filter good.
I'm not drinking this filthy tap water, are you kidding me?
If you do it 7 times, you got Aquafina.
I was about to check into it, that's like, well, we're videotaping some of it.
No, you're gonna like mess around with that so much.
Why don't you just take the hose, run it through the elevator, and then go up, and it just comes through the elevator?
Makes perfect sense to me.
Save yourself a lot of work, I don't know where we're talking about all the stair stuff.
That's how Lindsay did it.
Just use the. Makes sense.
It's a good idea.
Utilize the elevator.
Oh, take stuff.
Run in there, hose run.
Go up, go up, and come out of the elevator. Dude, that would work. I don't know why they keep talking about these
He
stairs.
literally built a device that
And if I get
Yeah.
moving, they don't eat
When
one.
the doors close on the hose,
What-
that's an issue.
what if there are.
Just press the door open button.
Yeah, you keep it open as you go up.
Just grind.
He needs to just be like.
It would work.
He needs to pull Tom
And
Brady.
it just pulls those up.
Just live over it and the hose slots in and then you could go up.
Yeah, we'll have him,
What do we do if there's an escalator? Like, what am I gonna do? Gonna go with that? What do you think about Brady going to the Bucks?
Hey, all hope he dies.
And they're all like, shit.
Testing. I would love to test it on the backside.
Yeah, that's what I did, I'm like.
I'm never
You're,
done.
you'll get ready.
Oh, Phil.
I am dying.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the hardest question.
Yeah, they figured out how to do it, and then they were able to take some of the guys up. The first guys that were in the elevator were working, so they hiked all the way.
Do not do the test yet.
You like get up to 60 and you're like,
I do. Do not skip to the back.
hey guys, we're just out here like 10 minutes.
Getting excited for a second.
We'll be in.
They go over the test in the back.
Hold that for me. Wait, do that again and then I'll start.
Yeah, don't start yet.
And then we're all
This is to
Yes,
roll
sir.
the pop.
Have fun with that. Alright, wait, go on it.
This is to meet the
Wheels or whatever.
Oh,
Stair
well,
climb. Stair climb. That's fine, it's a good time. Have you done it yet? Workout? I think you got workout or just replacing a skin, like what's the point of it?
This has cheated to
Or both?
Yeah.
Actually, to do it right, it's not a dog way.
No, I agree. I agree. The way that most people would say you have to do it is dumb. Yes. Actually doing it as a crew is an awesome measure.
Another one.
It's the Rona, it's the dry cough, it's the Rona.
You quit.
Yeah.
I told you to come up.
No, I'm quitting.
He'll go over some pictures here shortly. Maybe.
I'm in a continuous state.
Wow, that's a great picture.
Yeah, pretty much.
Consistent.
I am in a continuous state. I think we're just
Yeah,
talking
one
about
on the second window, and I'm gonna put one down. Put it out, I'm done. So the next one.
Come down the ladder. Whip between each foot.
I can't read. The state does dictate that if I request someone to read the test questions to me,
I don't remember.
I enact that rule. At least we do.
I did it like,
I need to read them.
I did it
without
three
explaining
times.
the test questions to me.
Come here, Eagle.
And I don't know which one actually worked. I don't remember who was it that I actually. No, the one that I actually submitted.
Give my pen in, boy.
Eagle Blue Pen, my boys.
There's like multiple
My
tests here.
boys. Way to go.
Well, Bernie, come on, man, challenge yourself.
How are you ever gonna?
No.
Hey. There's a lot of food.
Usually super green.
Yeah.
I like how the fire room has red fireworks coming out of it.
No, that's the red light.
That's the red light district? Red light.
I had this.
If you get below 90%,
You can get fired.
you're one smart.
The max length.
I didn't know.
Is it?
Yeah, it was per inch. There was my.
What year did the first launch time was you went to do
It was black. That's
Green.
That's not
It goes down, I think it's He's so full of shit.
Pretty sure it gets bigger again.
No, you're halfway there.
Something was everybody did.
The max is 300?
Something else has more.
What is the whole thing about it?
Everything covered, you stress it out?
HTC Dream was the first.
Oh, I am.
2008.
Yeah, look in your books.
For what?
The Max goes.
Who turned the air conditioner off?
If it's mine, it's actually
Oh,
good.
take your damn jackets off. It's hot.
God. It's hot. It's cold.
I've been, they don't keep it 10 degrees.
What's the maximum hose length? Yeah, I got my first one. The maximum hose length is different size.
400 for all of them?
Which one was 300?
400, well, which is it, 3 or 4?
That was the first.
Just before the bump.
So inch and a half is 400?
I bet you do.
It was 4.
That's what you wrote down right here.
Inch and 3/4. Yeah, inch and a half is 4 3/4.
I know that.
He's saying he feels like they should be going the other way,
Yeah,
instead of like the bigger hose has.
To me, a 2.5, you should be able to go 500. Oh, that would make total sense. More friction.
I was gonna say.
So,
My head hurts.
a 2.5 is capped at 200 feet.
720, 460.
Pretty sure.
No, you can add one more stick to that. You can add one more stick.
Bump her up a notch.
You can bump it a notch.
Doesn't make any sense. It's just weird.
I am
You said do not start the test.
How is that? You didn't say anything.
Can we go pizza?
That's like, heck, did you order some pizza?
I go for
1080.
But that's also.
I'll take some lo mein.
That's also a fact.
Okay, so, pizza.
360.
Call money.
Did you
go to-
open up the snack?
We had some pizza. I can come up with so many questions.
Are you coming back?
You know, I think if we had a couple pizzas, we could all just sit around and have a really good discussion.
4K.
Hey, Newton, you like medical calls, don't you?
No,
Remember wanting to trade?
No, man, I have kids. I'm more important than you. You don't have kids.
You know what? I'll give you a room to stay in for the next few months, okay?
I'll take it.
See?
I'll take it.
Okay, we'll go over some pictures while we're waiting for everyone else to come back. I think everyone's pretty much here anyway. So if you look at this picture, the fire room is up at the top. They went to the tenable floor below and stretched a 2.5 with a gated Y with a rope bag to the 3rd floor. So they made their own standpipe with that.
Smart.
Very smart.
Interesting.
This is a picture before the airplane hit
Pick.
the side of
Hey. So this is the LA fire that they were using, or that was, I think, last month, a couple months ago, where they had somebody crawling across here. They were crawling across the outside of the building, and they ended up grabbing them with a ladder. But
So scary.
it's LA City, and they still were able to. Sprinklers did not put this fire out. So sprinklers are, remember, just to assist with evacuation and hopefully keep the fire in check. Not always true. Here's another picture of standpipe, them using the aerial ladder as a standpipe. So you gotta remember, pretty much when that thing's been charged and in place, can't go anywhere. You'll pull the attack line right outside with the team attached to it. Here's some guys attacking from the ladder. And I think a 3-story. You look at this picture. They cut a hole and it's easier to attack it from the outside, I guess. How did that just click out? Saw that one. Saw that one. So here's that air system again. So here's the Cascade truck, and it just connects right to it, and then it's got gauges and it supplies the entire building. This is actually in in their tower, their training tower.
So they gotta plug their truck into that, they don't
Yep.
have cylinders.
No, they have to actually plug the air Cascade truck into it to supply it, but it supplies it to all the floors.
So it's not something that's pressurized sitting there, it's something that
It has to be charged by the rescue or the air cascade.
It's just
truck.
plumbing.
Yep, it's just plumbing, it's just airline.
So they did the same thing with the water source, they had an FTC, now they just put in air, so.
Yep.
Both.
Another standpipe, another look at the standpipe. These are inline gauges that they put above and below the valves, so they can see what the pressure is in the riser. There's that little cute 1 3/4 or 1.5 FTC, and that's like that residential line that's like that Lakewood or Lakeview Terrace. I mean, there's no FTC to it, but all it is PVC pipe. And when you finally find it in the closet, when the maintenance guy gets there, you have to go into somebody's closet, move their stuff, and find it behind a wall panel.
Does it shut it off for like the whole building or just that unit?
Just that unit.
So
Each one has a difference, so you have to find the closet for each unit.
There's one of those in all those apartments right there back coming out from the Battlefield, isn't there? Battlefield up there.
Visualize.
There might be. I'm not aware of that. I haven't been there yet. But I would not be surprised. But that's the difference between residential and commercial units, commercial sprinkler systems. That's about it there. Let's. So here's the activity. Some of you have the activity in front of you. Okay, we'll develop and implement an incident action plan for multiple story building. Incident scenario, candidate must be able to analyze emergency scene conditions, to allocate resources, communicate verbally and in writing, operate within an emergency management system, supervise and account for assigned personnel so that the resources are effectively deployed and mitigate the situation. The candidate will complete all of the elements of the assigned task, include candidate's narrative on a task completion form, photos, etc., or database entries, department policy or procedure. So within your photo, you can put in the margins or anything in there of where you put your units, what your size up would be, or you can verbalize your size up. I need to put a little note section in here so it'll be easier, but so the first building. First building, do your size up.
We're doing these in groups or just writing it on here?
You can verbalize them or you can write them down.
We got nothing to show you.
Nothing showing. So this guy is gonna do fourth entry. Oh, just make sure. Yeah. Never know. But trigger the sprinklers just to be safe. Pop that bad boy up. We're gonna fill it up. Close the windows on our floor. Can't burn it down if everything goes away.
Those are what you need to complete.
Develop, implement an effective initial action plan. That's what you gotta do for this. So we got this fire. It seems like your,
Next occupancy.
does it say anything about what you were dispatching for? It seems to me like you would, for this particular one, you're going like investigative mode.
So,
At the time, like, no, we didn't have need for a second alarm.
And let me know when you guys are done with activity one.
That one seems like
Or picture one.
Be a meet with potentially what do you call landlord on scene or whoever's there investigating a lot. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because there's not necessarily going to be like stretching hoses and throwing ladders and like establishing a rig if there's no, depending on what you're dispatching for. But as of that one, it looks like you're going for like a fire alarm.
So, fire is on the, let's just go.
So it's just a general. Open breezeway.
For group in pick 2, you have fire coming from the 5th floor. Smoke and fire exiting from the 5th floor midway in the building. Midway in the building.
Right on scene. There you
Fire right here. Fire right here. Fire.
And also for like that first one, it's not a bad accountability. Yeah, you would.
Assign your resources and accountability.
Like level 1 staging, because you're not going to want everybody crouching.
Was there a fire on the first one?
This is what they show.
Go investigate. And then your third new engine to stay on, or second engine.
That is probably your charge.
Yeah, like the other side of the parking lot. Yeah, there's parking. I would assume this is like fast.
You go there, I'll put you as investigator on my board. I can
Level 1 stage, everybody's ready, you only have a elaborate
investigation.
second engine is sitting on the plug and you're not dealing with that either. Two crews.
Done.
You have to keep an eye on the collapsing, if that looks like it is a sidewalk, and you're at the building, it's 5 stories. So pull a park right by that truck, or that thing. If you could, but that's where if you have your ladder coming in and he's forced to come in from this place, he might be okay if he was like up on the corner. And then this one is because if there might not be any way for him to realistically go and turn around in a realistic amount of time. That looks like it's downtown. Yeah. And he's somewhat away from the main fire right here. Yeah, and if it's on the first floor, collapse potentially would be fairly low. Regardless though, you need to take into account your initial action plan would probably be to first engine go to the 4th floor. Engine crew to the 4th floor, go out onto the balcony and approach down, make a standby, get the maybe that one, it depends on where the center one is, it might be on like both sides. 4th floor, lower down and make your own standby, yep. Tack up. It'll probably come itself. And then here comes over the stairwell. The ladder can do rescue or yeah, pop down, doesn't matter. You're gonna need one, you may need 2 pumpers.
Second.
If you could get 2 pumpers, one station about right here, one station over here, because these are both stairwells, or if there's a center stairwell, either way. You could have these guys who drop their hose down this side, and if you need another line, you could have another crew coming down from there with another engine coming from another plug.
Okay,
You got two
you
ones,
guys get
twice.
through group, or picture two?
Yeah.
Got everyone get a good idea of picture two?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said we can verbalize it. Accountability.
So where's the fire in this one?
You should probably be across the road over here on this sidewalk.
Right there.
Looking at all, right where the picture is
On the
taken.
fifth floor. So, once we get through all these, we work through all of them, I'm gonna get and go through each group, and then I'll have you do, pick whatever group, or pick one, pick two, pick three, and then I'll go through and actually do your activity with you and score you. Actually score you. That's your units that you can assign. And that's auto aid engine one. And truck one. Then there's 4 people apiece other than BC2.
Where's the firehouse now? Where they lay in.
Parking.
They'll lay in and just be parked right up at the beginning of the building.
Where?
Close by for their
On
keys.
that porch.
But out of the way. The main building.
They'll be right here in this corner. Porch.
Here?
Do it. Right.
Okay, what's happening there? Victim or fire?
Fire.
So, second floor or first, yeah. Above the garage.
We'll say AB corner.
Because that's not an entry, that's that might be a big closet garage, that could be like. That could be a maintenance closet or something.
Yeah.
We're kind of going with three. For a reason.
Oh, okay.
Let me make sure.
Okay, so your connection plans and
Address.
where was the fire? Could be. Right on this. Blown out of it. So you can probably kind of do it.
Reconnect.
So, me, this would be the CD side.
Go on first, and I'll have it where it is. And you may be able to dampen that upper balcony so that it doesn't spread.
Park the truck. I would park the
Truck on the corner, is the fire on the corner? You want the truck further out, but right on the corner? Truck one, like right here. House on the right on the corner, if that's not wrong.
This is the
And then this is another, like, it would be. It's tricky because I don't know how you're gonna get into that. Like, I don't know what the interior layout is. Like, that's a weird freaking building. Is that just like a balcony door for these people?
Yeah, but what's this?
No, it looks like a maintenance closet, or maybe it's fire exit, because it doesn't,
Might be.
it doesn't, it could be, it's a nice looking building, though, it doesn't look like.
These doors are all lined up right above it though. I bet that's a stairwell.
These are lined up right there, too.
I think that's
This might be.
Could be.
No, I get it. I knew this is my next read.
I don't know. I've never been in this building before. Someone should plan it.
Someone should pre-plan that building.
It's facing the street.
It may be because it very well.
And all these are like connected.
Yeah, and then the other side of the building may look exactly the same. These here, something on the corner. Again, just like this one and that one, so like if you look at, we call this A, B, Charlie, you could have these. And the B side, you have this door there. And then the garage connects up to it, or there's just there. I don't know.
So you might actually enter through here for another engine pull up
So,
here.
you should go here. This fire here. It's like a stairway right here.
You're not gonna have to worry about like going to the floor below the fire floor because that is the ground level, so. hit it from the yard and then try to work your way up from one floor. Get into that floor, however that it may be.
Here, or cut the garage door.
When you have a victim.
That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's like a zombie proof building.
Very
It's like if you ignore everything below here, how do you get
Uh,
into there?
Well, that is, it is weird, it's like,
What about pick three?
these are separate, two victims get into, or that's all your property.
And if this was the main entry to the stairwell, why doesn't it have just like a glass? That's like the most ghetto looking door ever. It's like what's on the side of the building, it's like there's a fire exit only. Or is it just more garages for these people's buildings? See, this is another set of units.
Because
There's your garage door up there.
like, so the garage doors are all along the back. I bet those.
But then these are probably other units, like all the lines underneath down, it's like these people and then other people. So it's like this unit probably has a garage down, although that one does have that. But if you look down here, it's like, the garage doesn't go all the way down.
Go and check for extension.
Two units right there.
Yeah, and there's like 2 peaks right here and then no peak over here.
How about this, we just put a ladder up to this, right here, we'll just go up there. As long as this floor is not gone.
Stairs.
Or you
Or heck, just go up to this one now.
You can just use the ladder truck if you want to. And yeah, just go right up over that house that probably burned out there, so there's the range right there. On the porch, you'll be alright. If it started in the unit and blew out.
We ask the passerby, how do you?
Yeah. Leave me, show me.
Sir, I want to leave.
Nope.
How did you get out of there?
See.
What's the dealio with the next one? Forward.
Oh my goodness.
Fire exiting,
The breezeway.
from this breezeway, and there's people trapped right there.
On that breezeway.
Yep, 2 people trapped in that one. Well, technically those are porches.
Oh, yeah, this is
Breezeway, that's a breezeway, that's a breezeway. And these are porches.
Oh, okay.
That's a breezeway. They're 6, or, yeah, they're 6 boxes.
And there's people stuck in this one. There's fire coming out of this one? You guys are idiots.
Fire coming out of this porch, 2 victims there. Just
Get out.
So once again, that'd be fine if we walk right by it. First new engine can hit it from the street. Because once again, this is like, anytime that you can see it from the outside, you can usually hit it. Now, this is weird because with high rises, you're not typically going to creek.
fire coming out of this porch, this is a
But
breezeway.
for that one, I
This is a breezeway, there's 2 victims trapped in there.
even the driver could pull the foot off and stand there and shoot that while the other guys go
These
up.
guys come in here.
Fire exiting this porch, breezeway,
It's
breezeway,
faster
2 victims
to go
trapped
out
here.
here, pull the freaking one set of stairs and you're always there. Ladder
Ready?
is designed to search.
And bring us in, right?
Which one do you
Ladder
want?
is designed to
1, 2, 3, or 4?
Ladder truck can do a rescue, they can probably throw a 35 and do it just as easy. Or the aerial, second due engine lay in and then help out the fire.
The signal's free.
And then I see you right here. Two, right? How are these guys stuck?
Okay. What's your size?
Smoke fuel. So would you pull your freaking neck and then have someone else take the, the bump?
So, first driving, where, see on these, it probably isn't worth the hassle of taking extra sections of hose and then staging below the fire floor or whatever, and then undoing them and then charging them just to go up 3
like.
Because either way, you're going to start on the second floor, you can't go up to there. So you either take all that crap from the second floor, or you just come to pre-connect an extra 1 story up. If it can reach.
It's coming out.
Or you can go up to the second stairwell and dump it out inside.
But it is actually much more.
Again, to do that, you're working on the dry hose all the way. Where if it's pre-connect, you can, and then it's charged for that. A couple of pieces, that's if most of this is on fire, you're gonna be able to put it right now. It's not like this whole road is on fire. The amount of gallon of water that's pushing out is pretty good. You'll be able to do it. Then you need to buy time to change.
As long as you got good firewall, do that, and there's good fire doors between that. It's possible. So you have an effective incident plan, you've done all of your, 10-second alarm, where are all your, initial alarm resources going to go?
And sometimes the individual units have them, but freeways don't. Because they're outside, they're exposed to elements.
Yeah, there's be dryer.
I don't think my own apartment complex has, if they had any units, the units had sprinklers, but not an open breezeway.
So this one, I don't know where this is connected, it doesn't appear to be. So, I'm gonna check this one.
And then you roll up and you're like, sorry, folks.
So they're gonna check.
I don't throw ladders.
I don't know, 24 footer to reach it, maybe probably good.
24 can reach
Where are all your units?
And ours, of course, our first unit is like in the ground.
Yeah, aerial right here.
Okay.
So.
Because I mean, that's.
We're technically
10 feet, 20 feet, and then the railing. So it's gonna be maxed out and they're gonna have to like come over the railing to get on. Like it's not gonna extend above the railing.
Ours is
Yeah.
like a community situation in ours.
So we have 24 footers.
Backside. Let's build an apartment complex. What the hell?
You operate with every incident in the system because they are required. Utilize resources in a reasonable and safe manner. I think you did that. And you developed an incident action plan. 6 points. Just, you can take a break if you want, hang out. Very soon. You guys ready? Okay. They did. They did number 2, so why don't you guys do number 3? Alright. Steve's one. Okay, so what's your size up?
We got 3 stories, 2 times 5. Or type 5.
Multifamily, very good. What else?
First, second story, balcony.
Fire smoke showing.
Alpha Bravo.
Okay, sounds good. Alpha Bravo.
Oh, is that
Alpha Bravo.
Alpha Bravo building.
Depends on what command set up.
Yeah, we had command set.
Okay.
What mode are you gonna operate in?
We're gonna do defensive and then go into transition. Whichever one pulls up first. And pulls up first, truck 1 in this corner here.
Okay, so you can get both sides of the building? Okay.
Into 2 lane. One. We don't know how the heck to get up there. This is an entry.
We're either going through the garage door or this is a stairwell, so either way.
We have like another engine room.
Okay,
Another
engine
engine.
for
Staging and stuff in.
Doesn't Close enough, close enough for their tools, but far enough away. Yeah, engine board grid.
I thought that one board was up there.
Yeah.
Once fire attack gets underway,
We have a 3.
it should be there. Someone's gonna go in search.
I thought that's what they thought.
Could you put engine 1 and 3 on fire attack with engine 2 laying in?
Yep.
Did you call for
Second one.
second alarm?
We just did one. As we pulled up.
We did, as you saw, there was fire. It was hidden by the stupid porch.
Yeah, because we came in all the way around back.
After you see your 360.
Pass.
Now you don't know what. That definitely is a good idea on an apartment complex.
Definitely want to do 360.
In the truck.
I'll be back in about.
I see that it's on fire there.
Take a break if you want to.
We'll be back. Let's take a lap.
Wonderful.
Yes,
You don't get to see it, because I gotta do this. I gotta see this little sheet over here. Okay, so what's your size up? What's the rest of your size?
Just leaves it like by the empty in the corner. There were no ones.
Well, yes.
And if he loses, let me know.
Yeah, someone stole it.
I wish we had a little mail slot. Because I bet people would shut it. That's like upstairs.
In our minds, we're having.
Yeah, so it's like a big.
We have everything on off, we have everybody come in, so we have a rural space to figure out what we're doing. Something going on that we move forward.
Porch.
Who's got your man?
The first, 11 officer is gonna be commander, he gets there and have him take command to help him.
Okay, you guys gonna take a break? And we'll do that.
So we're here till 6, right?
Do what?
We're here till 6 for another 30 minutes.
We're close.
Oh, okay.
So overlooks this, and this is just a huge window into the vast.
You guys have 4.
The abyss of Arkansas.
Size up. Whoever wants to do it.
Size of bundles is right on scene, 3 stories,
They're like, we really
fire
It did have some fire.
Please go to work.
So, to us, that was a big difference.
we only have
Fire showing. A side.
Is it true?
Okay.
Then, after.
So you're not establishing command? Not establishing command. Okay, so you're going straight for rest. Okay?
Probably not.
He's got some change.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I just got killed a couple times this morning on my way to work too. About
When everyone gets here, I want everybody to park.
What I was thinking is
That way, I can have the first unit here, and just do a video of water, and I can do all that. But then you always go to that website and change the video for to whatever you want. One is gonna go to the opposite side, if possible, for the building. Whatever you want them to do that is, I've already part of that video, I guess.
Help me.
Just like a video, just a video of you standing there and then like that way someone waters take a video, sir, get the picture of it. It's like,
And they went back up.
Just able to grab the water, so they'll be on it, they'll grab water.
let you know on your phone, like someone's watching one video.
It just opens up their camera and just looks at the brushes there. Automatically calls you on FaceTime.
Yeah,
Oh goodness.
Hey, stop looking at QR code, so everything you need to know.
The third one, it comes in for share, and the captain from the third, I'm supposed to put in my here. He's gonna take over commander and he gets down here. That way he's gonna stay outside of the structure. But my third engine, as they show up, they're gonna start to see what the water is there, everyone's here. They're gonna kind of see the game plan. That's why I want them to go in and take over with what's going on. Things should be set up for them to be able to start calling shots to make aggressive plays. Operations, I guess, no, it's not. Outlawing. There's a third thing we set up.
So are they going to the fire floor or are they going to the floor below?
We get that pizza order?
In this case, it's the, well, I really want to be in the floor below.
I wish.
Because I've already got the second engine going to the fire floor.
So they're gonna be base.
Base, that's right. Base, I have. I thought base.
Jake's favorite.
Call him, tell him to deliver over here.
Sorry, staging. I apologize.
Staging. So you have base, body, staging. And the staging is also my operations.
We got our snow, laughing that back there.
Yes, you're gonna have to.
Not dumb.
What's the ribbon? We don't get ice cream anymore because you're not there. Now you're the.
I do have a girl now that'll bring us ice cream.
You're like the 3 o'clock in the morning ice cream guy. Get back and call. Hey, what's ice cream?
What?
Just because it's.
I was up for like 2 hours, I might as well have ice cream.
How's your love life?
Well, this is supposed to be minimum,
Horrible.
but that's also probably.
Horrible?
Horrible.
All those ladies
I
at
would
the
like
pool.
to play one just because I got the fire showing. I would send the 2 remaining
All the
ones
bars have been closed, man.
to, one to
Almost.
staging here.
That sheriff says that's the best
Another one,
place to find out.
I'm gonna send to,
Where I'm gonna find my future wife.
meet up with the company. You don't want to work as a, Rick is gonna need to have all.
That is
he's
a
gonna need to
big,
have one engine crew, so.
never know yet.
That would
I'm already
be my-
30,
that should be
so I
my
might as
first
well not
one.
even try to have
And
kids.
incoming units, I'm going
You
to.
should just, you know,
between
You're already 30?
The truck
Yeah.
company.
the hell's wrong with it,
work
okay?
and-
Don't make me feel bad enough there.
Can't
At
you
least
tell
I can go to a bar and drink, okay? Hey, you don't,
That would have.
other people with it can't make fun of them either, okay?
That's expected at that age.
It is time to take the test. If you guys have had a break, you can have a quick break if you need one.
No.
You will have 15 minutes to take the test. Please put your name at the top of the test. Do what?
Oh, you want that?
Those questions, any questions?
Can't answer right now. Figure it out. Can't you tell me the answer? It's a test.
You really should.
No, we're not. We're gonna go with it. You know what the teacher says, and you know what, if it's not right, we'll take it up. I'm full Colette.
What? Nice stuff.
So like, go to chief. I'm not saying either one, what if you had a house, what if you had a apartment, whole house,
But here's the thing, do it backwards. Like, put it in there as soon as possible at the end of the test. And then like every block.
Because which one did they do in Houston?
Moves it around, you can click on it.
The one where
And
they
see
do
how
it
long
back
it takes to
there,
figure this out.
They're gonna be through a glove at the guy that's coming behind. Yeah. But that's why, but also the thing I was taught was, Rico, yes.
Did you do that forever and then finally like one day it's finally coming out?
I'm just trying to go through it now.
Basically life before.
Yeah, rescue,
And we slowly put more.
rescue.
One day we figured it out.
One day we take them all out. And it's just like,
What movie was
That
that?
was me helping whenever you looking.
Okay, yeah. I knew it was on the TV show. They didn't watch
you need to age yourself.
Rescue exposure, minutes containment, overhaul,
It sits on
and
the
then yes, ventilation
I haven't watched once.
and
Yeah.
separation.
Phil,
And that's-
I know, it's funny.
The office is on the ground floor.
it is.
If it's on.
That is somewhere about the, fire.
I don't like wearing one.
Jake will turn it on and throw it in or something.
That's property.
I bet he would.
What's that?
Old man.
He doesn't watch CNN.
CNN's all fake.
I don't use- I don't watch
It's like Fox.
KY3.
Student happiness.
Guys ready to check the test?
Institutions.
That's to be not the president.
I know.
I do like Lester Holt.
I think you actually.
Five
My
thirty.
son actually.
Property.
Of course. Yeah, it's very end.
Did it make a difference if we didn't use a number 2 pencil?
Number 2
Yes.
pencil.
Yeah, you failed.
Have you ever, like,
Scantron, you can't check it.
you know how hard it is to
Yesterday,
read
you
it? You have to see how kind of different
and
kind
it was.
for number 2. Like, you have to go.
Alrighty, multiple choice 1 is C.
Got it right.
Yay.
2 is A,
Yay.
Nice.
as in apple. Number 3 is D as in dog. Number 4 is C as in cat. Matching number 1.
I did B too.
You said number 4 was C? C? What if we don't think like a truckie? No, search and, you said search and rescue was
Yeah.
manpower
A
extension.
lot of manpower, search and rescue.
You
No,
said-
my bad, that's my fault.
You said that.
That was a mess up in the test. I'll fix
You
that.
did
Thank
not
you.
What is it?
say that
B?
out
So is
loud.
it B?
It is search and rescue.
You did. You said search and rescue.
This is how this works for the state too, but now you're wrong.
So it's evaluation.
I think.
Hey, this is the reason, this is the reason that I have you guys.
Because we're that
Matching
smart.
number 1 is B. 2 is A. 3 is D.
Bad.
4 is E.
Beard.
And 5 is C.
Rebecca.
The worst thing.
Matching 2, number 1 is E. Number 2 is D. Number 3 is B. Number 4 is A. Number 5 is C.
The worst thing those questions are, you get.
Fill in the blank. Number 1 is resources.
We're gonna get.
Number 2 is compartmentalization. Number 3 is incident command. Number 4 is geographic. And number 5 is systems.
What happens if you get 100%?
Yeah.
If we get ice cream?
You get ice cream, Grant, by the second?
Yes, your captain has to buy you ice cream.
You do not want me filling this out.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you one.
Our station captain or the truck captain?
Station captain.
Oh.
You're not mine.
He prepaid.
I don't know. I thought that
I
was
was about to say, I've already bought the ice cream, paid in advance.
Yeah, he's prepaid.
How'd you do
You
that?
gotta
Why
buy
did you do that?
Huh? Cause he's nice.
Yeah, our technical.
Oh, it's just-
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we're talking, who are we talking?
Okay.
Fill out the evaluation.
Technically Bailey bought it.
Please be truthful.
Oh, Bailey bought it.
Please be truthful as much as possible. I need your tests and your activities sheets. You're not allowed to take those home. Nope, we have that.
Pretty tasty too.
I do need your activity and your test. You do not put your
Here's the
name
problem.
on the evaluation sheet.
And then they brought us a shit ton
What
of
about
crap, my
like
answers.
a week before that?
That you can put in the comment section, you're proud of your answers.
And it was like, that cinnamon, like all kinds of different bread. It was awesome.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Strong work.
You can't leave until,
Strong work.
can't leave until everyone's done with the evaluation.
I turned my evaluation in already.
Sucks. Can't sucks. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Alright. Dang it, Brower.
What do you do?
He didn't put his name above.
Oh, like that?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. I followed directions.
Well, technically that was me and Jake, we took it together. Kind of
Well, that's your problem. You did it with Jake. That's...
we got 100%, man. It's 100 for all. Because I didn't listen to Jake.
You ready to go? Heck out of here, go make some food.
Yeah.
Feed, maybe that poor guy ice cream.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, 100%, you gotta get ice cream.
I'm gonna make him some tacos.
Hell yeah.
What kind of tacos we have?
Don't worry about it. Regular, man.
Beans. I don't like
What's for dinner?
Engine 4, don't get in a hurry, we still gotta get, I still gotta get him his video.
We're out of here though.
Well, we're gonna have dinner, eating, and be like laying down.
Hey, can you take my steak out of the fridge?
Hopefully. It's out of the
Brush
fridge.
buggy's out.
Oh, it's been out of the fridge, I forgot.
That brush buggy's out.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm in front of the camera.
You took my test? Did you put your name above the
That was a
test?
joke.
I did. Did you put your name above the activity? Yep.
Just put your name on the evaluation.
Nope. Put your name on the evaluation. That's good.
It's like dipping off.
Thank you. No. No, you don't actually put it.
You guys are terrible.
No, you don't actually do it. Dang it.
Somebody was probably like, hey, let me tell you this, boom!
Yeah, we're going.
You get that mixed up in the video?
Probably
Yeah.
said on the other one.
Please. Thank you.
Or that.
Thank you again.
Mm-hmm.